I was just more intrigued by like human performance, and especially the mental side of human performance, why great people become great, because you know as well as I do, anyone can become strong. Like you can make anyone strong. If you want to work with athletes, like definitely do athletic training. Like have your soccer moms be as athletic as you can, right? And then other people are gonna look at it and be like, oh, maybe he knows some stuff about some speed work, and I have a friend who wants to be faster for baseball.
Sit down, keep it real, and cut the bullshit. Welcome to Table Talk. This is Dave Tate again with another edition of Table Talk. My guest today is Brian Alsruhe.
Good job, man. Right? Good job. Yes.
Got it. I didn't say it fast enough. But introduce yourself. That way people will know, because they'll remember. Because hit it.
So
hit it hard and fast. No, your name.
Brian Alsruhe.
That's not how you do it on your YouTube.
So when I opened my YouTube, I was like, what's happening, people? It's Brian Alsruhe, neverstate.com. So no one knows how to say my name.
Yes.
Not that they would anyway, right? It's Alsruhe, like balls without the B and kangaroo without the kanga. Alsruhe.
Alsruhe.
But when you say like Alsruhe, like, because
and you do it on purpose just to mess with people.
I'm a high energy guy, and like, when you turn a camera on me and like I want to like share something, I get even more like, you're gonna find out. I'm gonna exhaust you, but like, I have so much energy all of the time, and especially when like I get excited about sharing knowledge. You know how that is. Like you start seeing someone pick something up, or you start saying something, you start feeling it, you get super excited, and I talk faster, and then no one gets it because they can't understand what I say.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna try to slow down.
That's all right.
And I'm gonna fail, guaranteed, okay. But I'm gonna try.
This is an interesting podcast for those that are watching, because I purposely avoided meeting him until right now. So this is the first time that we've met.
First time we've met.
Not actually shook hands.
We have not. How you doing, man? Oh, good to meet you.
But we didn't even do a pre-production picture or anything.
No,
that was weird.
Nothing.
So we just fucked up the whole podcast. But anyhow, I kind of wanted it that way. That way it'd be more authentic.
Sure, absolutely.
Because I watched, several of your videos to see kind of where your training philosophy is and kind of know your background, some of your background.
Sure.
But I don't want to go in and ask the same questions that you've answered hundreds of times before, because that becomes very repetitious for you.
Sure.
And for the listeners, it becomes very repetitious as well. Because
of course.
I've heard this. But they may not, I may be able to twist it.
Sure. And I want you to feel free if there's like anything where you're like, especially about like my mindset and stuff. Like if you're like, what were you thinking at this point or that point or whatever, like feel free. Like there's a lot of things I haven't like really gone that deep with because it's such a large story that like literally it takes like 2 hours to tell the story. So if there's like parts where you're like, okay, we know the basic story, but like, what about this? Like, feel free. Like I'm an open book, man, whatever. And no matter how dark or whatever, like I'm cool.
Yeah, where I was going to jump off was, because I'm sure I haven't even looked at the questions, to be honest with you, except scanning through really quick. And I haven't looked at any of them that I put out in the last post. So when we get to the asking for the questions, that'll be a good time, because who knows?
We're going in blind on that as well.
We're going in blind, man. We're going in super blind.
So I like it.
That kind of brings us to, I think the jumping off point would be after high school, let's jump off in the military.
Okay.
So the decision for that.
Okay. So this is an interesting story that I can't share the whole story, but it's not the military. It was the government. So it's like the government side of that, right?
Yep.
And I honestly, number one, hate them terribly. I'm super patriotic. I love America, but I think our government definitely makes some choices that I don't agree with. And I'm not a political guy, and I don't stay up on it, so I don't want to talk about it because I'll sound stupid,
I'm not gonna
right?
do that. Yeah.
But there was a lot of things I saw that I was like, this is dumb. Like, I don't agree with this. This is stupid. And so I don't really talk about what went on. And the number two thing is I'm not really allowed to. And number three is I'm in a lawsuit with them because the reason why I've been throwing up 50 times a day, every day for 2 years is because of them and
Yeah.
You know
So
what I'm saying?
I was speaking more of the choice. Like,
absolutely.
How did that come
Interestingly
about?
enough, was not a choice. I was a personal trainer after college. I went to college, and I owned a karate school in college, so I didn't have a lot of time for lifting. I know that's a typical thing to say, but the reason why I didn't is because I was fighting, I was doing jiu-jitsu along with owning a karate school and basically failing out of college. While doing, I mean, it's full-time, like that, it was a lot. And I was very young to try to take on that type of responsibility. Anyway, it all worked out fine. And afterwards, I realized that I graduated with a degree that I had no interest in. And what I really cared about was building muscle and training and human performance, not necessarily in like anything specific. Like I wasn't like yay powerlifting or yay strongman or yay MMA or whatever. But at the time, I was very into MMA. But I was just more intrigued by like human performance and especially the mental side of human performance. Why great people become great, because you know as well as I do, anyone can become strong. Like you can make anyone strong, right? It takes a special person to become a champion. And so I became very intrigued in that. So I got a BS type of certification. I won't name the name, but choose your pick, right? Yeah. And learned absolutely nothing besides how to memorize like the bones and like what the muscles are. And I'm like, this is useful for nothing that I'm going to use. And got into personal training and made a lot of mistakes and learned, honestly, my entire training starting at like 1990, whatever, with the paper T Nation magazines, like when it was Testosterone magazine, started out with those, led to like Testosterone Nation when it was testosterone.com, elitefts. And basically learning from people who were a lot smarter than me and reading what they said and then trying it and keeping like the Bruce Lee style, like I'm going to keep what's useful and I'm going to discard what's not. And that's pretty much how I started learning things and training clients and trying things. And those poor clients, like lab rats, but I think everyone's at the beginning are a little bit of lab rats. And did that for 2 years. Then one of my buddies, that was at a commercial gym, like typical BS commercial gym. One of my buddies left and was going to start his own gym, and it was going to be like a hardcore gym, right? Like, he was a pretty hardcore guy as far as hardcore people I knew, and I wanted to be a hardcore guy. Like, I like to train intensely, and a couple other trainers did. So when he left, all of us trainers that were kind of into it were like, yeah, man, like let's create like the Pumping Iron Gold's Gym, like everyone wants to do, right? And to his credit, it was really good. It was really good for about 2 years, and we had some really good training times in there and stuff. And actually, Mike Jenkins, I don't know if you know who Mike Jenkins is. He was a trainer out there. He and I went to high school together, and we're training partners and personal trainers out of that gym together. And that's how I got into strongman later, but I'll explain that. Anyway, my father-in-law actually took me out to dinner, and he works for a government agency that I can't mention. And he goes, "What are you doing with your life? Like, are you going to be a personal trainer?" He's like, "Are you planning on owning a gym?" And I was like, "I don't know. Kind of cool with being a personal trainer and like dating your daughter, like whatever." Yeah. And he's like, "Get a plan." And the agency that he works for, like, I didn't know anything at the time. Like, I believed like Jason Bourne movies and everything else, right? So I was like, this dude can look into my pet. He can look in my pet. He can do a lot of things, right? And I'm like, I should probably put in for something similar, right? So I put in for the most interesting government jobs you possibly can, which were all like the most Jason Bourne, stupid, like anything that had to do with like, oh, I'm going to go be that guy, right? Because I didn't know better. I was stupid, right? I'm 20 years old, whatever it is. And so I just put in for these things. And I'm not going to call back. A year goes by, not going to call back. Another year goes by, not going to call back. Her dad gets stationed overseas to do something. I go over for Christmas. We're hanging out, doing Christmas things. On my way back, at that time, the London tubes had been bombed. It was after 9/11 and all that stuff was going on, like right after. So it was an intense time for security everywhere. Some stuff happened overseas. I randomly, literally, it was on a plane, and a flight attendant looked at me and said, "Can you help?" I said, "Yes." I stood up. I did some stuff. Literally hit the ground. The plane had to get diverted. We landed at a different airport. FBI took everyone. All kinds of stuff went down, all right? Basically, I got a call literally like 2 days later, and they're like, "Hey, man, we see that you have an application in. Do you want a job?" And I'm like, "Yeah, yes, let's do that." And they're like, "Can you come in and take a PT test? Do you think you can pass it?" And I'm me, right? Like I'm the same me that I am now. And I'm like, I think so. But again, I'm thinking Jason Bourne, right? Yeah. So they take me into this place, and I'm doing my PT test, and typically you do it in a big group, but because of my circumstances, and there was a class getting ready to leave for some training, and so they brought me in alone, and I was there with this one instructor, and I obviously can't say his name or anything, but one of the most impressive Army Delta guys ever, right? So I didn't know this at this time. He just looked like an old dude with a mustache, right? And I was like, whatever, I'm going to show this guy, right? So first thing is pull-ups, and I literally do like 26 or like 30 pull-ups, push-ups in a minute. I do 110 push-ups, and I'm making myself sick because there's no standards. He's like, just go, give everything you have. And this guy, having his background, which I didn't know, is just deadpan, just looking at me like. And so mid-test, like after the push-ups, getting ready to do my sit-ups, I look at him, I'm like, am I doing okay? Like I'm getting nothing. And he looks at me and goes, it's okay. And I'm like, who are these people, right? Now come to find out, that's all smoke and mirrors. Like that it's BS, right? That, like so much of everything that we think is it's never as pretty as kids. Life isn't movies, right?
Yes.
And anyway, literally like about a week to 2 weeks later, I was in a field office, bought my first suit. I was literally doing construction jobs and personal training and bought my first suit ever in my life, put my first tie on, went to the field office, sitting there thinking like cameras are all over me and stuff like that. And they call me out of the room and they're like, Mr. Alsruhe, can you leave for training tomorrow? And I'm like, no, because training was going to be like 6 months long. And I'm like, absolutely not. And so they're like, okay, fine. So they put me back, and then they literally a couple minutes later, they're like, either you leave tomorrow or you don't have a job anymore. And I was like, I'll pack my bags, right? So literally like I left immediately and was gone. So after that, it just was a lot of travel. It was a lot of overseas stuff, a lot of local stuff. But yeah, that was the next 10 years after that.
All right, I'm going to circle.
I'm sorry. I told you, man.
I'm going to circle back
because I screwed up already, Dave.
No, you didn't screw up. There's a lot of things here that I think the listeners, there's a lot of takeaways that you're working as a personal trainer in a commercial gym.
Sure. Hated it.
But I assume that you had clients.
I had a ton of clients.
You had a ton of clients because I heard that in one of the interviews with you, that you had pretty much, I call it a full billable week.
1,000%.
Okay, so you had a full billable week there, and then you decided to go work at another club. When already having a full billable, and that's not easy as.
And you know how many clients followed me? Like maybe 3.
Exactly.
Maybe 3.
Yeah, that's always the case, by the way. Everybody thinks everybody's going to follow.
Yep.
They're lucky if they get 20%.
They don't.
They just don't. But the risk associated with going from 40 billable plus hours per week, which is financially, as a trainer, you're not going to get much better, because all you can do from that point is create a waiting list.
Yep.
Because, group training, I don't know if it was really taken off when you were doing it or not.
No.
So that wasn't even an option, So I was in the same boat, because you're like, well, fuck, what am I going to do?
Yeah, how am I going to, there's not more hours in the day.
Yeah. So you took that and completely left to another place where you're going, I'm sure you thought more were going to follow than did.
Yeah, of course.
And then find out they don't.
Yeah.
And then you got to build it back up again.
Yes.
Okay. And from the story that I heard, you build it back up again.
Yes. Can I pause you for 1 second there?
Yes.
If you are a personal trainer and you are having trouble with clients, and you know a billion different ways to work your hamstrings and like the insertion points of every single muscle, like take a class in counseling or therapy or business and salesmanship. Like if you want to be a successful personal trainer, be busy. Like give stuff away for free. Let people see you working with people constantly. Like, man, like nothing wrong with learning more about your thing, but most people that you're going to work with in a commercial gym don't need to know like the intricacies that like most people get. Like they would much better spend their time saying, I should learn how to communicate a little bit better, or like even learn how to like sell a little bit.
They won't. That's why I wanted to pivot back to this point, because I think it's the most overlooked point with personal trainers and hell, even strength coaches, private coaches.
Yeah.
You can learn everything that you need to know about how to train, a top end power lifter or a top end. To me, when it comes to measurable qualities of strength, you got Olympic weightlifting, powerlifting, 100 meters, and then strongman kind of, and I only say kind of because you don't know the events all the time.
No.
All right, so it's hard to peak for those.
Very much so.
So when you have to deal with something that you have to peak for a measurable, quantifiable event that's going to show if you had success or failure above and beyond where you were before,
Yep.
and you get the athlete that's at the highest level, then you need to know that top 10%. Everybody wants to ask about, like, how do you do a circ max phase with bands? How do you do this? How do you do how do you peak? How do you taper? How do you,
and then you're talking about such intricacies, and then like genetics, and like
Yes.
who your parents were and how hairy your arms were when you were 6,
and people who won't pay you.
Yes. Yeah. And think that should be free. Right?
Exactly.
Like that's not worthy because you're a meathead.
Yes. So so when you're in that field, even if you're a D1 strength coach, you're working with beginners when it comes to weightlifting. You know, so a high school is beginners, D1 strength coach is beginners.
Absolutely.
The people who are probably working with athletes that are beyond a beginner level might be people like yourself that have your own training facilities.
Absolutely.
And then you might pick up a kid at 12
Yes.
and get them all the way through high school.
Yep.
And then a little bit beyond. So you can actually run a quadrennial, you know, with them.
Absolutely.
Where, see, even a D1 strength coach can't do that because their best players are going to be 2 years and out to the pros.
Yep.
The worst players, you know, are going to be really hard to train because of the genetics and all the other kind of stuff. But to fall back on what you were saying, everybody wants to spend all their time learning those intricacies, and that's hard stuff to learn because there's a lot of blocks underneath them, basics that have to be mastered,
and it's beautiful.
The
art is beautiful.
Not understood, but the basics have to be mastered.
Yes,
where all they need to know is the basics on how to train a beginner, and then learn how to communicate and sell. And they're putting food on their plate.
You can easily support yourself
easily.
Like, if you do not have a job, you can go away for a weekend and come back and have a job.
And here's the thing is all those, I hate to say all, I take that back. I never want to say all. That's making an assumption of everybody, and that's incorrect. But many trainers will bitch and complain about the guy down the street who has all the clients but doesn't know shit about training.
I know.
But that person down the street knows enough about training to train a beginner, but also communicates very well. Actually, so well, he's kicking your ass.
And he's willing to work with those people that you're not willing to work with. Like, so many strength coaches and people are like, no. I have a certain like stereotype in my head that's supposed to come to me to work, right? And it's supposed to be like an elite level guy, and that's who I want to work with and whatever. But like 99% of the people that you work with in the fitness world, it's just a microcosm of the rest of the world. Like, there's not a whole lot of Brian Shaw's.
Exactly.
Right? Like, you're going to have a whole lot of like Brian Shaw's mom. Right? And so like you better be able to learn how to intelligently tell Brian Shaw's mom how to deadlift correctly so she doesn't hurt her back and she can, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's the important stuff for a lot of people out there that could potentially be making a living at this and are failing at it for the wrong reasons.
And here's the pattern that I'm seeing is your sales carried you through, you know, to a full billable week to another location, full billable week, which carried you over to being able to sell yourself to get
1,000%.
a government job.
1,000%.
Okay, which then, you know, skip forward, you know, to where you are now, you know, having your own facility to where the sales fall again on you, which becomes a little harder when it's just all, you got to do everything. You know, because sales still got to be prioritized, but you still got a million other things that you have to do.
It's a heavy game.
Yes. So if you were to give, you know, 3 sales tips that would make a difference for a personal trainer, somebody trying to get clients, not online, just in person, we'll make it so there's visual communication and verbal more communication involved instead of written copy. What 3 things should they, because everybody wants to ask about books. Fuck the books. I want to ask the person that knows how to sell. Okay, what 3 things should they be doing that they're not doing now?
Number 1, work your face off, right? When you're a personal trainer, you're a business. It's no different than when you do this place, right? Like, it's not work when it's building your dream. Like, work is when you're building someone else's dream. Now, granted, if you're a personal trainer, you're giving like 50% away, right? But like, the harder you work, the more money you make. So work your face off. And so many people kind of have like a expected, like, oh, well, I should at least get minimum wage plus this, plus that. And I'm like, what'd you do? Like, go out. Like when I left all of those clients and no one followed me and I had like 3 clients left and I was working literally 16 hours a day. I can remember every single hour that the club was open, I was there, right? Whether I was training, working with people, literally grabbing free people, like friends that I knew and being like, hey, let me just count your reps for you and walk you through and do something stupid so I can look like I know what I'm talking about. So that these people look at me and they say, that guy's busy. Because if you're busy, people want to be with the busy guy. If you're always overstanding, drinking your protein shake, like leaning on equipment, like people are like, no one's interested in what that guy has to say. They don't care how big your biceps are. Like if you're busy, you got something to offer, right? Like you're obviously doing that. So number one is definitely work your face off. Like you're going to work for free. If you open your own business, you work for free for years, sometimes decades before you get your first paycheck, right? But a personal trainer thinks they're supposed to get paid. It's a business. Look at it like that. Work your face off. Do it for free. It'll come around, right? Second thing, like you already mentioned, like taking classes, stuff like that. But I do think just watching some stuff from like Gary Vee, right? Like somebody who just looks at selling a little bit differently and is kind of on the cusp of where things are going. But also if you listen to the way that he speaks, he talks about speaking to context of certain people. So if you come at a soccer mom, sorry, am I allowed to say soccer mom? Right? Like, is that a thing? Right? Like, it's live. Yeah, anyway, so like a soccer mom, right? Like, if you come at a soccer mom and you're like, you know, your tibialis anterior is going to, like, she's going to look at you and be like, okay, you're using words that make me feel stupid so that you can feel smarter that aren't helping me. And when you look at 99% of the time, when like a jerk doctor or a jerk trainer speaks to a client, that's exactly what they're doing because they want the client to believe that they know more than they actually do. I purposefully, in my YouTube videos, try to be as stupid as possible, like talk down, because I know my audience is not like Brian Shaw doesn't take time out of his busy day to watch my videos, right? Like, but I know the guys that were the guys that I was 20 years ago going, man, I don't know about this, and I wish someone would have told me, right? So, and I think about how that's said. And if I use, you might be able to say like quads and delts and stuff, but like you get too into the weeds. And when I was a kid coming up, I was like, I don't care about that. Like, I care about how you make like deadlift go up. Tell me about that. Like, and I think a lot of people try to like use fancy words and fancy gimmicks to get people to do things when really the basics work. And they always have worked. They're not sexy, but that's why you need a personality and you need to learn how to sell, right? And then the third thing is work on your social skills, I guess, because in reality, you're a rep count in a commercial gym. Like, and guys, I'm not trying to bash anybody, right? Like, toughen up, right? But like, if you're working in a commercial gym, most likely that person wants you to count reps and be their friend, right? And they want to hear you be like, oh yeah, so how is Cindy? And then you complain about Cindy through your entire pec fly or whatever stupid thing you're having them do. And you're literally hoping that they don't ask you why you're doing what you're doing or why, like, you're fine with it at that stage, right? Because you're learning, you're accumulating. But like, either you need to stay there and learn how to like really make money off of those people and make a living, or like move on and try to better yourself and work with better clients, stuff like that. But even like the best coaches, maybe not the best, but at least at my level, like I still work with the majority are like normal people, right? Like people who want to get to where I am. I work with a couple people who are better than me. And honestly, this, you'll probably be able to speak this better than me because you have a lot better friends than I do, or more elite powerlifting friends and stuff. But my gym, I have some very, very elite guys, some world champions, some people that I do not deserve to coach, right? Like I'm not that good of a coach. I do not deserve this type of clientele, but my mentality and the environment that I built brought those people. And I don't know. So I just think a lot of the game when it comes to your clientele and who you're working with has to do with what you put out there, right? Like if you want to work with athletes, like definitely do athletic training. Like have your soccer moms be as athletic as you can, right? And then other people are going to look at it and be like, oh, maybe he knows some stuff about some speed work. And I have a friend who wants to be faster for baseball. Like, and that's how things build, right? But like, really you just need to be willing to listen to people complain about whatever's going on during their day. And I know you're not that much of a huge people person. I'm not a huge people person. And sometimes you endure that because just like everything else, you need to pay your dues. I know people don't want to do that anymore, but I'm almost 40. I'm not going to say how old you are, right? But like when we came up, you paid your dues. It didn't matter. You walked in the gym, you weren't accepted. You paid your dues. Like, and I don't think same with personal training or anything like that. Everyone just kind of accepts things and they're not willing to put that time and that effort in. But in reality, I probably took a while. I don't know how long it took me. Maybe like a year and a half before I was stable enough to actually be like turning clients away and things. But like I was taking clients all hours of the day, all whenever, like waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning when I just trained at like 10 o'clock the night before and just like a zombie, but it didn't matter. Like I remember one time training a kid and I swear to you, I was still drunk because the night before was New Year's Eve and he wanted to get an early start and he was like 16 or something. And I showed up and I had to like reek of booze from the night before. And I'm like, but that was the stuff you did. You know what I mean? Because like you trained anyone for anything. You like sold your soul to try to like make it. And eventually the people came. And the funny thing is just like a girlfriend, like if you're in like high school and like you want that girlfriend, no girls are found, right? The second like you like get into weightlifting or like you're real into your job or whatever, like the girls show up and you're like, I don't have time for girls right now, right? Same thing happened with like everything in my life. Like when I didn't want clients, when like I was like, I don't need any more clients, it was like they were just throwing themselves at me. Yeah. But like if you don't look busy, no one wants to be with that dude.
To dive a little bit deeper on one of the things that you're talking about is, the people person thing, which I'm an introvert, always have been.
Same.
I don't perceive that changing at any particular time. And I carry a fuck you face, so now you take that back to 25 years ago when I was training clients and I was, training at Westside full competitive mode, at my best, so at my best, I'm over 300 pounds, full bloated, half purple, fuck you face, and white polo that you had to wear, and the shorts. So, I mean, I didn't look like, I didn't dress like the polo fit. It wasn't like I was like pegging my sleeves to make my arms look better, or anything like that. But what people need to understand is you can have an intimidating nature, and if you know how to understand and have social awareness of what that actually means. I understand if I walk into a room where there's a lot of people that don't know me and people look on me, they're going to look at me like, oh, fuck, look at that dude.
Right.
He's fucking crazy. He's not crazy. I don't have crazy eyes or anything like that, but, I don't want to fuck with that dude, that type of thing. Or if it's an office or a meeting or something like that. But what I learned a long time ago, and this was before I even left high school, was I just demanded their attention. I didn't demand it, but I got it.
Right.
All right. Now, what I do with that, that's on me.
Yeah. Like
getting their attention, that's on them, right? Because of the way I look.
100%.
They're going to prejudge me by the way that I look. That's 100% on them. But what I do and what I say when I see them, that's on me.
Yep.
But I have their attention, where the other trainers don't.
Yes. Okay,
so they're like, oh man, look at this big ass dude.
Yep, you're a walking billboard.
Yes. Then I walk over and then, how are you doing? That time, I'm Dave, however the conversation was to start, and, walk away and, write notes down. I had a sales process that I used, and then was learning their name, go back. I didn't really learn it. I wrote it down.
Yep.
Then I'd look at it and go back. So I commented to, I had conversations with them every single time I saw them. So I went from the guy that at one point in time, because they all tell you later, man, you scared the shit out of me when I first walked in. Now you're, the greatest guy, but that was how I acted.
Right.
And you got to have to have some social awareness with this.
Yes.
Sometimes I'll use it to my advantage. Like, no, I don't want to fucking meet this person.
Right.
So fuck them. They can think that and I don't care. And then go about my own business, which is what it is.
You know what, though? I think that's intensity. You know what I mean? Like, now, granted, there's some people that are just jerks, right? Mm-hmm. But like with you're a good guy. Mm-hmm. You have a good heart, mm-hmm. right? Like, but you have an intensity.
Yes.
right? And so like people who don't have an intensity see intensity in other people, and they see it a lot of times as negatively or as like intriguing or different things, right? And if you have intensity, like the world moves out of the way of people who know where they're going. Like it does, right? So when you walk in a room, it gets noticed, but you have that moment the second that somebody meets you, and what you do with that moment is either you fulfill every single stereotype that they just had when you were walking towards them, or you break everything.
Yes.
Right?
And
that's just turning off your intensity, like you said.
Yeah. And for other people out there that are like that, you know, I do want to come straight out and say, you will screw up.
Yeah. All the time.
You will screw up a lot. Okay. And it's hard not to.
Yes.
Because that's just the way the world works. But get used to it.
Yeah.
You know, get over it, you know, and don't screw up next time. You know, it's just kind of the way it is, but it can be used. Nobody can use it, in my opinion, nobody can use it as their excuse. Anything that anybody could ever give me, I don't care what the reason is, as an excuse, I can show them how that's a benefit.
Same.
If they pivot it.
Yes.
They just need to learn how to redefine it and pivot. And then they can use it to actually not only their benefit, a huge advantage.
My whole game.
It's a huge advantage. You know, they flip that to that advantage, and maybe it's a different market than what they originally thought.
Yep.
But they find out it's a market that's way better for their fit.
Yes.
You know, and that's what I was seeing through your story, you know, outside of the sickness and all the other stuff. That's what I was seeing through the story of that, is that sales ability.
Yeah.
And the word sales gets a very bad rap, where I'd probably be better to say your ability to communicate. Absolutely. Effective communication.
Because like whether you're selling yourself in a relationship, you're selling yourself in that's all it is, communication. Right?
Yes. And knowing how to, how to communicate effectively, but then when you screw up, you know, not back. I mean, if you screw up and say, look, you're a dickhead, and the person was really a dickhead, you can always apologize for what you said, but you don't have to apologize for the person being a dickhead.
Sure.
Because as soon as you do, you're going to start to lose credibility, you know, from that standpoint. So you got to, that's part of effective communication as well. Absolutely. Like when you screw up, if it's on you, admit it. You know, if it's how you feel, admit it. You know, take ownership, I guess is what I'm saying. Yeah. And a lot of people don't. And that screws up their communication. Yep. Because they'll take ownership for the things that they want to take ownership for and make them look good.
Yes.
All right. But in all reality, when it comes to sales, that's not really helping them.
No.
It's hurting them more because they're not taking ownership for anything that they've ever screwed up.
Yes.
All right. And people want to do business, and people want to, with people like them. And while nobody wants to come out and freely admit it, everybody screws up.
Yes. Everyone screws up.
Nobody wants to work with the perfect person because they don't exist.
Yeah.
It'd be like looking for the perfect client.
Absolutely. But everyone wants to be the victim, though, a little bit, though. You know, like the reason why it didn't work out for them, whatever, like they're always pointing at somebody else. But like you said, like so many times, like you just need to own like your words or your actions or your decision. You're like, it was the wrong one. Like, I know you've talked extensively about this and written about it, and I've read about it, and it's helped me in my business where I'm like as much as I would like to say that it was because of this or because of that, when it all boils down and I take all that BS away, I said yes, or I said no, or like
it's still you.
It's like if I chose not to lock my car and someone broke into my car, I'm like, well, that sucks, but I did choose not to lock my car. Like, you know what I mean? And if the faster you can get to that ownership point everywhere in your life, the sooner you can start moving forward, right? Because you're not a victim anymore. The second that you blame anyone else, you can't fix it because they did it. And you can't change someone else's. You can only control your attitude and your effort. And if someone else is in control of that, you give them that if you don't take ownership.
Yeah. And it's with that, I can add to it, if you have, you know, staff or you're a manager and you have people that are underneath you, you want the people that are underneath you to take ownership for their own mistakes to you.
100%.
To you, but not to the public.
Yes.
But ultimately, you're the one that put them in the position.
Yes.
You're the one that kept them in the position. You're the one that did or did not train them to be adequately prepared for what they got themselves into, you know, from that position. So ultimately, it's still you.
Heavy as a head.
You know, but you don't want to, you know, have the staff or the managing personnel or the managed personnel to think that they shouldn't take ownership for their own actions, so it kind of trickles down, but they should never be the ones, big company, whatever, small company, in the firing ground on social media for some action, like an owner should never say, no, man, that wasn't me. That's fucked up.
Like your name's attached. Yeah. Sorry, bud. Like that's what you signed up for.
Yeah. And you see it all the time, all the time.
Like dodging. And you're like, I don't know.
It's throwing, there's nothing good that ever comes from that because you're throwing your own people under the bus.
Yeah. So, which, whether it's true or not, what does that make you look like?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, can I ask you a question? Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, we have similar starting points with like the personal training stuff. Like, and now obviously you're here, right? And massive company and online, like everything that you do. Like, do you think the decisions that you were making, like taking ownership for like saying yes to training someone at 4 a.m. and like eating the tuna fish, like those small decisions that you were making back in the day, do you think like as more and more, I guess, responsibility has come upon you, do you think that you would have been are you happy with like the pace of your business? Like if it would have been faster, do you think that you would have learned the lessons fast enough? You know what I'm saying? Like you were making the small decisions when you were a personal trainer, and now those small decisions as a personal trainer would seem pretty trivial to you now if someone came to you and asked you that question. Your decisions are much bigger now. But if someone would have came to you as a personal trainer and said, hey, Dave, we just lost X amount of money. What do you want to do? You would have lost it. You know what I'm saying? So like, just like lifting weights, like you build a tolerance, like you build a strength in your decision making. The small decisions have become big decisions over time. Like, are you happy with the pace or like?
No. How do I answer this? It should be bigger.
Right.
It should be more profitable.
Sure.
And that's not, me trying to stand on a high horse. It's me comparing myself to competitors in the industry and not just, the biggest competitor that owns the market that everybody knows. I'm talking smaller competitors that people would never believe we're doing 4, 5, 10 times the business that we do.
And the equipment sucks.
Yeah. And there's several of them. So that, from the pace of that, I have to fall back on, am I happy with the pace? No. But am I happy with the values that I've had to stay within to get to where we are? Yes. If that's the price that I had to pay to keep my values within plus or minus 2 to 3 standard deviations of what I consider to be my norm, then I'm okay with that, and I am. Now, if I would have been willing to take my values a little bit lower, a couple more deviations lower and then justify it for whatever reason, then I think that the scale would have happened faster, but I would be sitting here not the same person that I am now.
You say that, and the reason why I'm sitting here is because I randomly mentioned you on a YouTube video, and then you sent me a free yoke bar.
Yeah.
Like, no one else is doing that, right? So, like, I get what you're saying, right? But, like, that's a lot of money out of your pocket, right? But I'm sitting here going, I have so much respect for you, and, like, I will sing your praises forever on whatever venue I get because, like, literally you just reached out. And, like, honestly, like, I know I'm not just saying this because whatever, but, like, even in your emails and stuff, like, you spend so much more time than you need to like explain your point or like just like you can tell you care. Like everything you do is definitely like there's a sign of like I actually gave a crap when you asked me a question. I wanted to give you the answer. It wasn't just like blah blah blah, yeah, whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like the sheer fact that you sent me that bar, which is not a cheap bar, like it absolutely blew my mind.
Well, the thing with the yoke bar, and to kind of give people a history of the story, is somebody sent me a message on Instagram saying, hey, go look at this guy's video. He's talking about, different, I forget what the original video was about, but you were talking about yoke bars.
Sure.
And somewhere in the video you said, Elite FTS and, a couple other companies, are too big to care about the little guys. And it wasn't said really in any type of derogatory way.
Yeah, it wasn't mean.
It wasn't mean at all. It just, not at all. So I don't want people to think that. They can go look at the video.
It was mean.
Yeah, it wasn't mean at all. But when I watched it, I'm like, wow, that's not, something's wrong with what we're doing with our marketing and how we're positioning ourselves. And I want to reach out to this guy and ask why,
Right.
because something's off. That if we're being, compared with these other companies, which, they were really good companies, but they, in my opinion, they don't care about the customer anywhere near as much as what we do.
No.
So it's like something is not right. All right. So then when I sent you the email, it was asking, why do you feel this way?
Sure.
And then you answered honestly with that, which that answer was enough to be able to allow me to dig deeper to figure out what are we doing with our positioning, and our marketing. How are we marketing? Where are we? It's not really marketing so much, it's positioning. How are we positioning ourselves? And then I could see, oh, okay, now I see. Here's a couple things just from that email, really low-hanging fruit things that I can change immediately right now, that day, that were changed. And then other things to change are going to take a little bit longer. From that, those things that you provided me are worth 100 times what that yoke bar is worth. Because if you felt that way, so do so many others.
Sure.
All right. So it wasn't just, oh, here's a chance to be able to send a yoke bar, to be able to do this really cool thing.
Right.
It was a gesture of thanks that was something that I wasn't aware of.
Sure.
And that's what I love about social media and, why I work so hard to get people to DM me.
Yeah.
Because it's more of a personalized service, because then they'll tell me, hey, look, this is messed up. My whole 22 years in business, every big issue that we've ever had, not every, but most big issues that we ever had were brought to me by our own customers. So it's like, that's cool to me that they feel comfortable enough that if I say, look, what exactly is going on,
right.
They can tell me and not have to like bullshit around and all this other kind of stuff. And so that helps, and from a customer service standpoint, obviously, yes, that helps as well, but it can also run people out of business if they, listen to certain business podcasts. They're like, do this. And the people are like, I'm going to give away 100 products this next, and then they have no inventory and they run out of business. But if somebody, I will say this as a business owner, if somebody helps you in such a way that's going to correct a broken system in your business that is going to cost you money, then you should at least thank them. I mean, if you can't afford them, to do anything, at least genuinely thank them, for letting and make it sincere so they know that it helped. And if you can do more, then do more, because sometimes those little type of things, they all start little, but then man, it sprouts over several years. Then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, shit, now we got a real problem.
Yeah.
How do we fix this?
Yep.
Where if you catch it at a small enough point, then you can pretty much fix it 100% behind the scenes to where you're not getting blend. You got to worry about optics and everything today more so than ever, where you can fix so much.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say corruption type behind the scenes, but I want to say more along the lines of you're not getting blasted, across, several threads about something that's not even true.
Right.
And then you got to go out there and
I hate that part of it though. Like there's so much good with stuff, but man, I would say social media definitely does take up a little bit of my, or a lot of my anxiety, kind of like I'm worrying about junk that doesn't matter mind, you know what I mean? Like over a lot of stuff. But then at the same time, the biggest changes to like how I do business and how I approach things has come from good criticism,
Yeah. And I'm in a different field, because I'm not doing online training and, I don't do, it's still online commerce. So it's online retail. And
but with like DMs and stuff, like when you're taking like the like I guess like some complaints, or not really complaints, but people just suggesting stuff like that's where you make a lot of your changes, right?
Well, it's a starting point.
Yeah.
You know, because there's some things like, you know, hey, look, your international shipping's bullshit.
Right.
And it's like, well, okay, you know, I can explain to you why.
Sure.
And then I can explain why, but it's not going to change because we're not going to go back to the postal service. So, we have a, you know, branch in the UK, which isn't doing great. So it's like, we're trying, you know, we're working towards it, but there's probably not going to be an immediate solution to that problem anytime soon. Now, if it's something else that's customer service related, you know, I'll get those and, you know, reply back, but I still need to speak to the customer service. I still need to, you know, I need to vet it, you know, to see what exactly is going on. But even, because there are people that are going to try to screw you, you know, it happens. But always. Even with that though, and this is the thing, even with that, if you communicate back to them and you're just polite about it, and maybe they are trying to screw you, and then you're like, look, dude, you're not even, you've never purchased this, you know, you purchased from somebody else, and you're still polite. You still had meaningful dialogue with them. Sure. That's beyond them just reading a post. Yeah. So maybe next time they're going to buy from you, instead of saying, dude, look, I know you tried to fuck me because I can see right here. You don't have to do that. Right. You know, they know what they tried to do, and they got caught. I mean, I've had people say, "Oh, dude, you caught me," you know, and I'm like, "Well, it's worth it." You know, I guess it's worth a shot, right? You know, and you have fun with it, and you know, kind of go that way, and you know, so there's no, you know, I don't have this whole. I don't really understand the whole hater thing because I don't have the whole lot of haters, and if they do, I just, you know, either send a message back saying thank you for your message, your comment's been noted, and then just go about my business. And they're not going to occupy any space in my brain because I have too many other things going on for them to even occupy any space in my brain. Yeah, that's true. That's different than somebody that's actually pointing something out that is wrong with a product, you know, stuff like that. And it usually is through the DMs where those things will come through. But most of my DMs are honestly, they're just training related, and they're beginners that nobody else is helping. Sure. You know, there's a lot of people, obviously more so than I thought when I started answering DMs, who just completely blow people off. You know, and I get that a lot too. It's like, I can't believe that, you know, these big name people that are actually trying to sell online training are blowing off people who are asking training questions. It's a chance. It's like someone walking up to you in a commercial gym and saying, how do you bench press? Yeah. So it's exactly what that is. Like, you have a chance to be like, here's what I know. And like, maybe they're going to walk away, but maybe 2 months down the line they buy. Or maybe here's the thing. It's still a numbers game, right? Yeah. So say it's 1 out of every 100 that actually signs up. Well, you got to answer 100 of them that won't. Exactly. You know, and that's going back to what you're talking about before, that people want they want the reward before paying the price. Yep. Answer the 99 that are just going to need a little bit of help. Yep. You know, you needed help, but sometimes somebody answered your question, didn't charge you anything. Exactly. You know, so how hard is it for you to be able to do the same to somebody else? You know, so it's how you look at that. But then, hey, shit, that 100th one, like, how much are your rates? And that guy's never going to ask you if they can be lower. Right. You know, he may not even, he may actually not even ask the rates. It may just be, how do we get started? Yes, 100%. You know, but you need 1,000 if you want 10 clients. Well, fuck that. That's too hard. So you'd rather sit and bitch. Right. You'd rather watch TV or do whatever. And remember, like, that 99 that did not buy, it's like sharpening your sword, right? Like, okay, you told them something, and like, you know that information is correct, but maybe it wasn't presented the way they needed. So next time someone asks you something, try a little different. Like, don't continually answer the same way. Like, try different things. Sharpen your sword. It's like approaching clients, like, or like dating a girl. Like, you need to ask a bunch of girls and look stupid before someone says yes, right? So like you need to look stupid a lot. And in those questions, you're just sharpening your sword so that maybe when you're on the Dave Tate Table Talk podcast and you ask me a question, I'm like, maybe I've answered it before, so I'll have something to say. Or if a client sticks you on the spot, you have something to say. Like, you're sharpening your sword. You're always betting your craft. Or you could look at it as like, oh, that's 99 times people didn't like me. Like,
man, you have a chance to get better every single time, or a chance to just like hate yourself. Like, make a choice.
And it's, I mean, you have a popular YouTube channel. So here's some of the things that I hear from this side is somebody will, ask a question and then their reply will be, dude, I just made a video about that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, whoa, wait, whoa.
I'm guilty of this.
Whoa. I know the frustration. I understand the frustration, but that person who's asking doesn't even know you have a channel.
I know.
You see what I'm saying? So
Yes.
you just gave up an opportunity to say, hey, man, here's a link.
I know.
And it's Instagram. You can send them the link.
And it would take me 2 seconds.
2 seconds.
But for whatever reason, I had really important things to do that 2 seconds.
And if you're really answering DMs, the way that I am, I have, a notepad, which got maybe 6 different videos. Yep. And you're sending the same videos over and over and over and over and over.
I do that with links to like certain ones of mine. I have that, but not like.
And that's another reason to put out great content.
Yes.
Because it's not just for the viewers of YouTube or wherever you're posting the content. It's also for that person because as soon as they DM you, that's one step closer to having a relationship with you.
Yes.
All right. So that's in the virtual world. That's one step closer to actually becoming a client, becoming, a customer.
Yes.
Or who knows, a friend.
Yep.
Maybe your best friend.
Yep.
You who knows,
right.
Long term what that's going to end up entailing or being. And if they don't send anything, then they're just another voyeur, watching content.
Yeah.
Which who gives a shit about the impressions when it's the contact.
Right.
That's going to lead to that.
100%. Like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely am guilty of not sending.
And I'm not going to say I don't get mad too, because people will ask me something and be like, dude, look, man, just
like that was my last video.
Yeah. Actually, it's my last fucking post on Instagram.
Look back one.
Yeah. Look at my feed. It's right there.
Right. Keep scrolling. It'll show up.
Exactly. But now then I'm making the assumption that they're actually going to my feed page.
Right.
Which, how many times do you go to anybody's feed page?
I know.
You don't.
I know.
You scroll through.
I know.
So you got to stop, and kind of see from there. But I mean, this is just sales stuff.
Every time that I do send a link, though, it ends up saving me time. Because the video explains it in depth and answers the questions that I'm going to get the 3 emails. You know what I mean? So I should take that too. I'm dumb. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, it will help, and it will help. It'll help build those. It helps the person asking the question, because there are going to be some people that are going to drive you nuts.
Sure.
They just over and over and over and over and over, and you send them the article or the video, and these people I do call out. If it's a 10-minute video and I send them the video, then I get a question back after a minute and a half. I'm like, dude, listen.
You didn't even watch a video.
I at least gave you my time. Right. To answer your question. You can at least now give me some of yours.
Yes.
To actually, and they're usually pretty cool about it.
Yeah.
But people are impatient.
Yes.
Very impatient. They want the quick answer right away.
Yep.
And when they're beginners, there's really no quick answer because everything works.
Yes, everything works. Just do it consistently, long enough, like you'll be shocked.
Yeah. So the sales thing, I think we got covered.
Sure.
And we actually kind of went into the customer service part of that. The training part, I don't know if I want to go there just yet. I kind of want to stay on this part here because you don't have staff at this point, do you?
My wife is also a coach, and I have one other coach who is getting ready to leave for the World Championships. Good luck, Nick. He leaves Sunday. So.
Okay. That brings up a good thing. How long have you and your wife been working together?
At the gym?
Yep.
The gym's been open 5 years, or almost 6 years, so that long.
Okay.
Since beginning.
What boundaries do you set, if any, and how do you work with your spouse to be able to keep business somewhat separate? Because it's never separate. When you own a business, you work 24 hours a day. 24 hours. I don't care what anybody says. But you still got to be able to have time.
Yes, you need to separate.
So how do you go about doing that?
That's a really good question. I would say the number one thing, and this is pretty cliche to say, but I try to actually be where I'm at, when I'm there, right? Like, and I try to practice that everywhere, because that's not something you can just turn on and off. That's got to be a mindful practice all the time. So like, you and I are talking here, like I don't even look at the That I literally, everything goes away, right? And so when I'm with my wife, I really try to do that. Like my phone goes on the night mode or whatever, silent mode, like not even vibrate, because vibrate is like a little bomb in my pocket, right? Like it vibrates and I'm just like, it's building till I can look at it, you know? So I just turn it off or I put it away and I don't pay attention to it. And I intentionally have to program downtime because I'm obviously have some energy and I will just go. And like you said, when you have a business, especially an online business that goes 24 hours a day, like your commerce, like there's always questions to be answered. There's always emails to be answered. Like it never stops. It's overwhelming. It never stops. And so you're laying in bed and like, if I can't sleep, I'm like, well, I could lay here. I could do 20 emails or whatever. Right. And, I need to program downtime or I will not take it. And then I start falling in the trap of like, downtime is not productive time. So it's bad. You know what I mean? So for probably the last, when I was sick, and I'm sure we're going to get into that, but when I was sick and the business, owning a business is enough on its own, but like being sick on top of that, I was in such like survival, go mode that like any downtime I considered bad. You know, it was like punishment. I was like, felt bad, felt negative about it. And now I'm coming out of that and literally having to like deprogram my mind from 2 years of like survival, make as much money as possible. You're going to die. This is for your family. Like going from that to take a break, man. Like enjoy it. You're alive, bro. Like take it easy. Like sleep in some or do whatever, you know? And so those boundaries right now are something I'm working very, very hard to do. And it's overwhelming, to be honest, because my default is work, just like in the gym. Like you tell me to work harder in the gym, I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem, right? Like you tell me to take time off and I'm like, got to do something. Can't we do something, you know? And with business, even worse. So programming in those things and then making sure when I do program those in, I'm actually there. I'm not like, yeah, we're going for a walk while my phone's in my pocket buzzing or whatever. I really try to focus on the people that I'm with. And I've neglected a lot of people between being away for counterterrorism for 10 years. I didn't see anyone. I wasn't at Christmas. I didn't do Thanksgiving. And then having your own business, it's very easy to become a workaholic. And I definitely will be.
Well, it's
you know, that's a term I don't really like. Like
I can see that if you work for somebody else. Yeah. And then you're working obscene amount of hours. Yes. If you own your own business and it's on your mind all the time. But the question that I would have for you would be, would you agree with the statement, you know, or the sentiment where people say the best ideas have come to them like just driving in the country or while they're in the shower and stuff like that? Yes. Right? So what you're doing is you're depriving yourself of your best ideas by working all the time. Yes. So totally by not giving yourself that mental break, you know, you could call it meditative state. It's, I mean, when you're showering, your mind's free. Absolutely. You know, when you're driving, you know, as long as traffic's not through the roof, your mind's free. You know, when the mind's free, music's on. Like, I'm not a big fan of audiobooks. I know that everybody's going to freak, you know. But you know what? I just want fucking music playing. I just want to chill out because
that's how your brain does it.
Yeah, then something's going to hit my brain that wouldn't normally hit my brain. Sure. And so those places are there for that to happen. You know, it's just, it doesn't have to be, you should still schedule it, yes, you know, but they're already there.
Can I ask you something? Yeah. Because I've read a lot of your stuff and you and I have similar mentalities of like the blast or dust type mentality. I'm finding it very tough that when I do take downtime, I just want more downtime. And like, I'm finding it hard to like restart, like motivation with continual perpetual motion's real. You know
I have to have, for me, downtimes like watching TV. I have to have some kind of I have to have some kind of stimulus. Same. Or driving. Yep. Same. You know, TV. You know, that type of stuff, because if it's just, and I've tried, and you know, when JM was on the podcast, you know, I've tried meditating, and I can visualize like a motherfucker. I can do that. I learned that through sport training. I can do that easy.
That's different.
You know, that's completely different than just being in a meditative state, but I haven't given up on it.
Sure.
I keep trying, but it's going to take my meditative. But for me, by having just that little, it's not even white noise, it's just white background. Absolutely. It's something that it's usually my wife will be watching some show and I don't care about the show.
Yeah.
I don't even know what the fuck it is.
Right.
I'm not watching any of it.
Yeah. Your eyes are there, but they're not there.
I'm not there.
You're blank.
I'm just gone someplace else.
Exactly.
But it's down.
Yes.
And so that's the way that I've done that, instead of just, okay, I need to find a quiet place, because a quiet place, my brain, no.
That's demons.
That's like me going into the, weight room to train legs by myself and only one light on. Right. Only bad shit's going to happen in a situation like that.
I can't even sleep with that noise. I need some type of sound or so, same exact way.
So that's how it is. So I do, from the driving standpoint, I do take breaks, and we'll go, especially if there's something that's pressing that I'm trying to work through.
Sure.
I'll leave here, drive home 15 minutes, sit in the chair for 5 minutes, drive back 15 minutes.
Right.
And then, I'm ready to go.
But that's enough downtime for you.
Oh, hell yeah.
What was the last time you took like a real vacation?
We do every year. I have two. So I'll take one that might be a week or 10 days.
Sure.
That we haven't done this for a few years, that we'll go on a cruise. We'll go somewhere that almost forces you to disconnect.
To unplug.
Yeah, but I found out with that, though, it drove me fucking nuts.
Yeah, too much.
I have to be able to connect, but I break it. I bring it way down.
Sure.
Way down. 3 weeks out of the year, we'll stay at a condo in Myrtle. And I still have, people would laugh if they saw the kitchen table, because there's 2 computers set up and there's, everything set up. But there's only 3, maybe 4 hours a day of work.
Sure.
Tops.
Which 3 hours a day to a business owner is nothing.
Yeah, I'm doing what I have to get done.
Yeah.
Getting it done and then leaving.
Yes.
But that's, 3 weeks is what it takes, and it's any longer, then it starts to become a little bit too boring. Any shorter and it's not long enough.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it's also, a big part of what I try to do is empower the staff to be able to take care of things if we're not here.
Absolutely.
All right. So I'm close enough that, a call away or whatever it's going to be. Emergency, I could fly back in an hour, but
sure.
Never had to, and they still managed to keep everything rolling.
Still here.
So, and things, go well with that. So now before I got married, vacations were not in my repertoire.
No.
Never. It was my wife forcing it, and it was like, oh, fuck, I don't want to. And that was different, though, too, because, this is just a bullshit excuse, because I was getting paid, by the hour from clients. So not only did the vacation cost money, but I wasn't making any money.
So you were getting stressed out.
Yeah, so it's like, this sucks, man. It's like I'm paying twice as much because, I'm not making anything.
And you're losing.
And it's just like, fuck, this sucks.
Yeah.
And then training was a huge part of my life as well. So I had to kind of coordinate it with that. That was it was a hard time to be able to do that. But once all that was over, she's always been adamant, like, we're going on vacation, we're doing this. Now, I may have other ones that might be 4 days, like a Friday to a Monday type of thing. Weekend. And I work a lot on the weekends, so it's you work pretty much all the time. But I'm not going to complain about it, because
it's awesome.
What I have is freedom of time, where, it's because I don't regret seeing my kids walk. I don't regret seeing them crawl. I don't regret always being home to see them get off the bus.
Yep.
Okay. So did that cost me a little bit of growth, and fast tracking and growing the business faster than what it could have? It probably did. I'm not going to lie. It probably did. But, that's a value that I wasn't willing to compromise more than a couple standard deviations.
100%.
So, and it's funny that you said, because there was a question that was asked about balance, and the way that you answered it is exactly the same way, almost identical, Josh, because you were here, right? Almost identical to what I said last week, is if people are looking for like a work-life balance, the best way that you find your work-life balance is to be present in everything that you do.
100%.
And it's funny that you said it, because I'm sure if he goes and he looks hard enough, he can find the exact statement that I said. And I said to the person I was speaking with, I'm speaking to you right now, and the only thing that matters to me is you.
Yeah.
And nothing else matters. The phone's upside down, and that's being present. And if you take that and expand that, you know, to work. So when I work, I work.
Yes.
Except for the admin crap. Like the admin crap is,
Preach.
You know what I'm saying? Yes. You can't, it doesn't require the focus.
Yeah.
You know, you can fuck around a little bit more.
Yeah.
You can do some of that while you're doing other stuff. It's not focus oriented type work. But it's got to be fucking done. And anybody who thinks they're going to completely free themselves of that, I think they're being sold a false bill of goods.
No,
because,
not if you're a top guy.
You know, no, not unless you're a top guy making a lot of money that can hire assistants that they trust that aren't going to rip them off and everything else. So
I'll never be that level top guy.
Yeah. So there's always going to be admin. And I think even with that, if you're Bezos, right?
Right.
You know, I still think he should be answering, if he's on fucking Instagram,
1,000%.
some of his DMs.
Why not?
You know, so he should have some admin there. You know, nobody's above, you know, being able to be polite to their customers, their clients and stuff like that. But if I'm with my wife, then it's focused there. That's where
1,000%.
where it is, you know, and you got to be present in whatever you're doing. So if it's training, you're present in your training. You know, if you're with a friend, you're present with your friend. The problems become when, if I was checking my sales right now, the whole time I was doing this.
Yeah.
All right. Now I'm not present.
No.
So this is a shitty conversation.
Yeah.
Okay. My sales aren't going to be any better.
No.
Unless I completely stopped and then had to go change something on a sale. If I'm, you know, with my wife and we do talk about work, but if I'm with my wife and all we talk about is work, then I'm not present.
Right. And I don't want to make it seem like my wife and I talk about work all the time.
Yeah, it's just that's why I kind of asked about the boundaries, because there's certain things we will talk about that are at home that we won't talk about here, but most of the stuff is talked about here. Like, and it took me a long time to do that. It's like I want to say it, but now I just write it down.
Sure.
And then we'll talk about it tomorrow.
Yeah,
You know, now the things that financial things we'll discuss at home. You know, if it's a staff type thing, we'll discuss at home. You know, anything that you really don't want being 100% transparent.
Sure.
You know, should be at home. And it's that way it's not misinterpreted, which can happen if you have staff, you know.
Yeah.
And but it's rare.
I think also if you're talking about work and stuff, it's fine, but you can fall into that pattern, right? Where like you just kind of get into the weeds with stuff, and then like an hour will go by and you're like, our whole dinner was spent talking about. So like, I think if you do get into a conversation that's kind of like talking about work or something that's like really like, we need to talk about this, but I don't want it to take all night. Mm-hmm. Like, I think just for yourself, kind of set a limit in your head and kind of be like, all right, I'm going to say what I need to say, listen to what she needs to say, respond. No matter how emotional I am, I'm going to stop and make a decision about whether this is going to be productive. Like, my next steps here, are they going to be productive? Or like, is this just an emotional response to whatever's about to happen? Because I'm getting spun up. So I get spun up.
Yeah.
And like, I'll literally need to stop and be like, all right, am I going to be productive anymore? Or am I just beating a dead horse because I'm emotional about it? And like, can we move on to something better so that our night will be better?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So it's setting boundaries, like 100%. Having something like that is going to help. It's my wife, Tracy, she just stops listening.
Yeah.
You know, and then I'll know, okay, this conversation's over.
Yep.
Because I'll repeat myself over and over and over and over. It's like, it's already been said, it's done, move on. But I think when you have that presence, balance isn't a problem, because the only time balance is really a problem in the conversations I've had with people is because their significant others are bitching about how much they're training.
Yep.
That's the only time. It's not like they're bitching. Sometimes it's bitching about work, but it's usually, you know, you're always at the gym, you're always at the gym, you're always at the gym, you're always at the gym. Well, let's step back. You know, when you're with her, are you actually paying attention to her?
Right. Or are you talking about the gym?
Or are you talking about the
Or
gym?
are you saying like, no, I can't have that because it's going to mess up my squat. I need to.
Yes.
Yeah, like, come on, man. Like,
because if you're giving her the attention and listening and so forth, then probably every hour given to her could be 2 hours in the gym. You know, I don't know what there's no real trade-off.
Sure.
But usually you find that's not the case.
Right.
You know, you're being a little bit of a dick at home, which is creating, there's an underlying problem.
Yes.
With when people are saying you're working too long, you're in the gym too long. There's other issues which are underlying,
yes,
which are usually communication issues,
100%,
between those people, which
yes,
falls back on where we started with the communication.
Always, it's literally the key to, like, you can't get through life without humans, and you can't deal with humans without communication.
Yes.
So, like, even if you don't like it, even if you're like myself, I didn't like personal training because one-on-one conversations are awkward to me, right? Like, they always have been. I don't know what to say. Like, it's always been part of my life, and I don't like it. It makes me feel uncomfortable. So I didn't like personal training. I totally forgot. Well, I got
Well, it's just the one-on-one awkward conversations with personal training. But I kind of think where you're going is, once you started doing it, you realize they're not really interpersonal communication things. It's just people just talking to talk because they've been locked up in an office all day long.
1,000%.
And they just want somebody to talk to.
They want somebody to listen.
Yeah, they just want somebody to listen. They actually don't even want you to talk. They just want to fucking talk.
Yes.
And have somebody to talk to that's not part of their normal workflow.
And no matter how much I think that I'm able to hide that, like, oh, I'm just going to check something on my phone or whatever, like, you can't. Like, no matter how good you think you are at sneaking around it, whatever, trust me, if someone truly knows you and you are usually present for that person, the second something else is on your mind, they're like, what's up? Tell me, right? Like, your wife's like that 1,000%, right? So is mine. Like, I can't hide things because I'm like, all right, if I was ever going to hide anything from you, I should have probably started differently than what I've been doing. You know what I mean? Because when you're truly present with somebody, the second that you're not, they're like, hey, why am I not getting the same attention? You're something else going on. What is it?
Well, here's the thing that, if you really think about it, if your clients are Gen Pop, right, then they're working usually in some type of corporate or professional setting to where communication is vital.
Yes.
To their role and what they do, and they're able to afford you, which means they're good communicators.
Yep.
Probably better than you.
Most likely.
Okay. So if you can read their nonverbals,
yes,
they're reading yours better.
Yes, 1,000%.
So that's the one thing that I always kind of kept in mind when I was working with clients is, shit, man, these are attorneys, they're lobbyists. These people are fucking paid.
Like, these people are smarter than me. I don't know.
These are the fuckers that know micro expressions, man. They know I can't stand their fucking guts, but I'm doing this anyhow.
Right.
it would freak me out sometimes.
You're like, why do you keep coming back? You know I don't like you.
Exactly. It's like and I know they know it, and it's like, oh my God, I gotta go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. You're in the mirror, like, stop.
Calm it down, tone it down, turn it off.
Yeah, pulling all the Tony Robbins shit. You are a good trainer. You are a good trainer. You can do this.
You like people. You will be nice.
That's a fucking true story, by the way. Oh my God, that's funny. Okay, so with this, the business stuff, because I really wanted to get in on that, because that's what I think can help a lot of these guys. Even with everything that we've talked about, you can apply it to an online model.
The exact same stuff.
Communication is still communication. It's just digital. So you got to be really careful, about what you say, and how you say it.
Because it doesn't go away. Even though you think you deleted it, it doesn't go away.
Yes. Yes. And a lot of times people who will DM you or get a hold of you, English may not be their first language.
Yes.
So
very often.
Yes.
Very often.
Yes. Don't assume they're dumb. Right. Because of that,
you know it pretty quickly once you've seen enough. But at the beginning, you're like,
like, what is this question?
Yeah,
like, how can I squat? And you're like, what the fuck you mean?
Yeah,
then you look at their profile. Oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah, you do a little Sherlock Holmes work.
Yeah, then you got to answer. Like you're talking to a first grader.
Exactly.
You
need to shape it into context.
And bring it down from that standpoint. And so nothing really changes with that.
Not at all.
It's just the same skill set. With the one thing that you brought up, which throws a big blaze in the more than a blaze, it turns a spark into a fire, is what do you do when you're so sick you can't work? And that's okay. So there's I'll launch off and just say, when you have the right systems in place, you can be able to step away. I saw Cosgrove do it twice fighting cancer, and you know, that's having staff, and I understand that takes time, you know, to be able to build the business, to be able to do that. But now you see the importance of why you'd want to be able to have that.
1000%.
But it takes time to do that. So if you get hit like you did with that, how did you manage going through that? So go into the story a little bit, but then how you managed being able to stay afloat with all this.
Well, I guess a little over 2 years ago, I started getting nauseous in the mornings. Didn't know why. At this point, I was no longer doing counterterrorism work. I had owned my gym for, I guess, probably about 3-4 years, something like that. And would go in the mornings and train. And it's open air gym, so it was like during the summertime. And it gets pretty warm and humid in Maryland. And so I would get nauseous in the mornings. And I was like, maybe it's because I'm like chugging a protein shake right before work and just doing weird. Anyway, the nausea kind of just continued till I started throwing up. The throwing up became every day, which became multiple times a day, which eventually was 30 to 50 times a day, every single day for 2 years. So if you can imagine like having terrible food poisoning or like the flu, I was having seizures, body aches, all the fevers, all the normal stuff with all that vomiting. So it was like living with the flu all the time and owning your own business and doing everything. Still competing for part of it until it just got too bad that my body, I couldn't hold on to nutrients. I still can't eat food. Like the way that everyone else can eat food.
Yeah.
But, so it led to a bunch of injuries, which led to 5 surgeries over 2 years. It was just it was a crazy time. And so obviously that was a lot of time down. At one point, after I tore my rotator cuff, it was the first injury I'd ever sustained. I've been through a lot of injuries through like my fighting stuff and my old job and being stupid. Never lifting, right? I've always been super fortunate. Well, I tore my rotator cuff because I just wasn't holding on nutrients, right? Still thinking I could do what I could do when I was healthy. And when they fixed it, whatever screw they put to anchor it down was dirty, and I got a bone marrow infection, which led to immediate more surgeries, a lot of complications, which went to a PICC line in the chest, like a catheter in your heart, which that was always my biggest fear, was getting a catheter. Not even so much the wiener catheter, but like catheters are just gross like that. It goes like, it's gross, right? And they couldn't stick any anesthesia or put me under for it because of I had literally just come out of surgery, and they were like, you have bone marrow infection. You're in serious trouble. We need to stick this in. And led to like one of the biggest fear moments of my life. How to deal. It's so gross. It's an entirely different story. But I had to stay home on my couch giving myself IV injections four times a day, 4 needles a day, every day for 8 weeks. Supposed to wear a mask if I left the house, so obviously working was challenging. I was still going to work some, obviously not much, and when I did go, I would literally get so sick that I couldn't really stay there very long. Still tried to get some training in as much as I could, but I have a beautiful wife who supports me, and at this time, she right before we found out about this, we've been talking about her quitting her job. She had been a counselor for schools, like at troubled youth who like would like spit at her and kick her, and like they were those kids, right? And so she was looking maybe to try something new. She's a little girl. She's not even 100 pounds, or she's like 100 pounds. But so she wanted to start her own business. She's a counselor. She's a therapist. So she opened her own practice, and then we found out that I had the disease, and I kind of went down. So she was working my job on top of her starting a business, which you know how crazy the first X amount of years is. And I have one other guy, Nikolai Myers, who is he's leaving for the World Championships, Strongman World Championships on Sunday. And he's super loyal guy who just has been with me every step of the way. So between those two people and the graciousness of all our members, we made it through. You know, if it was like a normal commercial setting, my gym is in a pole barn. It's borderline a private gym. Like if you're negative, I throw you out. Like if you're a jerk, I throw you out. Like, so we have very little members, but the members are family, right? And like when we have classes, it's like practice. Like everyone gets together and it's like, here, it's a team, right? Like if someone's not there, I don't need to be like, hey, what's with your membership? Like someone's calling going like, I need to go on squats, and you weren't there for squats. What's up? You know? So that's why my retention's awesome, because I don't need to do it, you know?
Yeah.
And without the help of those people, if it was a normal gym, I wouldn't have made it. But because we have some really cool members and some really awesome people that just pulled twice the weight that they should have, they helped me through it. I'm so grateful for those people.
What was the diagnosis? Or
the diagnosis is cystomyces, which is a parasite. So during my time in counterterrorism, I had gotten in some water, put part of my body in some water. It was not, I didn't drink dirty water. Part of my body was touching some sort of dirty water. Worms swam through my skin. The worms obviously wreaked havoc on like my stomach lining and worked their way up to my brain. And so literally 240,000 people every single year die of this disease in Africa alone, just in Africa alone. And it's cured with like a couple $1 pill. But I went through 2 years of the best doctors in the world going, you're the healthiest dying person we know. And then finally, I was at the Arnold and ran into Mark Bell, who I have some history with, and he saw how sick I was. He was like, dude, I heard you were sick, but I didn't know you were like, look like you're going to die sick. So he was like, I've made a lot of contacts. This doctor only deals with like special ops personnel. And so you've been to a lot of the same places, so maybe she can help you out. So literally a couple texts later, she was like, you have worms. And I was like, I don't have worms. I've been tested for worms. I don't have parasites. She's like, you have worms. So I had to go to New York City, which I'm not a fan of cities, especially not driving and parking and all that stuff, where I had to see a special doctor who, it's a hilarious story, but stuck a 10-inch probe up my butt for this test. It was a great experience. I've had it done twice. Have another one coming up. If you'd like to see it, I can make that happen. And then, so after all that, we got diagnosed with worms and got pills, couple $1 pills, and I don't have worms anymore. Now I'm dealing with Lyme. Found out after that I'm dealing with Lyme, so I'm getting ready to start my whatever protocol is for that. That's going to hurt me a little bit, and then, yeah, that's it. But the complications from the worms could potentially stay for the next 20 years. They don't know.
Yeah,
so we'll see.
Well, at least they figured it out.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes. Literally, everyone thought I was going to die. I thought I was going to die. I was working my face off because I was like, I quit my job. I don't have really retirement. Like all the money that I'm going to leave my wife is right here. So I need to make it all right now. You know what I mean? And it was a hard 2 years, man. Like it was darkest time of my life. I've had really dark times in my life, and that was by far the darkest time of my life. So
the medical takeaway I can put out there from going through different but similar type of things is if you're fucked up, you know, real fucked up in one way or another, and the medical professions or professionals that you're seeing are not making you better, find other people.
Yes.
Actually look for the best.
Yes.
And go. Because if you don't, you're just going to keep, it's, you need
to travel.
I don't know enough about the actual medical profession to make broad statements, but from my experience, I see two routes. There's one route, which they just want to test and bill as much as they possibly can. Just basically suck you dry of and your insurance dry of everything they can possibly do. Yep. And then the other route are the ones that want to actually try to solve the problem.
Yes.
Like, here's a puzzle. It's fucked up, but we're gonna figure it out.
Yes.
And they're still gonna test and they're still gonna do all the other stuff, but their end goal is to figure it out. Where on the other side, the end goal is, how can we get this person to a maintenance level, then med them, and then just have them on meds, you know, until the day they die. Yes. And there's two, and I've seen it frequently with a lot of different cases or people, to know that seems to be, to me, from my experience, the route. And if you think that you're going down the one route where it's just test, meds, test, meds, just not saying that that's the wrong route. Just go see somebody that's on the other route. Yes. And just see.
We had to go to people that didn't take insurance. Like, that's where we got to, because we were going to everybody, because we're right near Johns Hopkins, which is like a great hospital, and like they're sent us out doing different things, and it just so happened. Oh, by the way, you said the testing thing. Like, I had been tested for parasites, I've been tested for Lyme, I've been tested for all these things, but a lot of the tests that people run are not substantial for the actual disease. Like they needed to stick that probe up my butt. That wasn't like something that I was like, yay, let's go do that, right? Like, but I was clean according to all the tests that normal doctors have ran. It wasn't until I saw a doctor who regularly deals with people who are in gross places and sees this stuff, right? If I was in Africa, they didn't know it like that, but it never shows up here. So, yeah, it's been a ride, man. It's been a ride.
Interesting. Let's get into some of the questions.
Okay.
Because I don't want to start popping training questions off because I did see quite a few in there.
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff. First one. So Brian, we shot a video a little earlier tonight that we haven't released with you talking about the giant sets that you do.
Sure.
So this first question was, how do you come up with the giant set format for training? I can't remember how in depth you got in the video, and obviously we haven't released it yet. So,
do you think I should talk about like the idea behind the giant set or the actual setup?
Whatever you want. I mean, maybe both.
The whole idea behind the giant sets was that I didn't have the time to train, and honestly, my training wasn't like trying to be the best powerlifter I could be or the best strongman. It was about MMA and performance and stuff, and it was more about like working things I needed to work and stick to the basics and be explosive and athletic and all the normal stuff. And so I just started throwing a giant set format because when I got into counterterrorism, I was traveling all the time, and I didn't have Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday to train. It was literally like, you're going to train at 2 o'clock in the morning this day, and then next day you have noon, and then you're not going to train for 4 days, and then you're going to have 1 day, and then, you know what I mean? So it was either like go to like a full body thing, which I wasn't really that interested in. I still cared about how much I could squat. I still cared about how much I could deadlift. So I just threw it in giant set format. And my basic idea was so that it didn't take as much away from, like if I was going to do my bench, I would work a row before my bench. So I was working the antagonistic beforehand. If I was doing a lower body day, I would do something kind of ballistic, like a jump or like a swing to get something hinging as fast as possible and then go into a deadlift or you know what I'm saying? So I'd set it up intelligently. It wasn't like I'm just trying to grind myself on the ground with like stupid circuit training. And then since I set it up like that, when you don't have a lot of time in the gym, a lot of times something like your core or like stretch it, that kind of stuff doesn't get done because you're like, I got to go. So I would throw in my core after I do like a row to a bench press. I would throw in some sort of core exercise, not because I think direct core training does a ton. I don't think it hurts you, but it definitely doesn't take away from like your bench. So I was like, it's rest and I'm not going to do it later. So I'll do it now. You know what I mean? And then since I trained for performance, it was like 30 seconds of something hard, like jump rope, for instance, right? And then I'd go rest 90 seconds, go back to the top and go again. So, yeah, I've trained like that literally for over a decade. And
how many, because while it's a giant set, I saw you list out the video where you listed out your protocol. It's usually 4 things that you're putting together.
Yeah.
All right. And then there's a longer break and then another 4 things, right?
Nope, same 4 things typically.
The same. Well, I know that, but you'll do the 4 things for say 3-4 sets.
Yep.
Then you go to supplementals, which you have a supplemental circuit.
Honestly, my supplementals are more based off feel. So I won't do 3 sets of 10.
Okay.
Like because I just get bored.
So the programmed are the first 4. Okay, and then. So I'm trying to help people visualize.
Sure,
so you got 1, 2, 3, 4 things, done in
like
a circuit
A, B,
fashion.
C, D,
yes.
rest,
then,
A, B, C, D, rest, A, B, C, D.
Then after 3, whatever rotation.
Until I get up to the desired weight of the main movement. So like if I'm throwing for a 700-pound squat, I go as long as it takes.
Yep. And then there's a hard line break.
Yes.
And then there's the next, which is based upon feel. Which could be bis, tris, abs.
But typically I just take the main mover and either it's going to be volume for like some type of technique or really dropping the weight and working my form so that like my last reps are my best reps.
Yes.
Because if I'm doing something really heavy, a lot of times I like to drop back and just kind of make sure that I'm ingraining those good reps at the end. So the last thing I did was just good when I left, or I stick them in some sort of assistance finisher that's based around the weak points of that lift. So like if I need good mornings for my squat, then that will be thrown in some sort of timed group. So if you say do 3 sets of 10 of whatever, I'm like, this sucks. I've been lifting forever. This sucks. It's not fun. And so now, since I'm not like trying to win world championships and I train more the way that I want to train, I'm just like, I'll do good mornings to like a stone to shoulder to like a farmer's carry. And I'll do as many times as that as I can for 10 minutes or 12 minutes. Something that normally 3 sets 10 would have taken me anyway, except I won't do 3 sets 10. But if you stick me on a clock and you say, go, I'll do it. You know what I mean?
So once your body becomes adapted to the volume and the density,
Yeah.
all right, just the sets, the rotations in the circuit.
Like the work capacity.
Because there's an adaptation process just for that, where
Absolutely.
people probably shouldn't even worry about the weights they're lifting, just get the number of sets
First
done.
2 weeks, you're just going to be heaving.
Okay, once that's done and that adaptation's taken place, what is the progression from there? Is it changing the movements, or do you start trying to push the weight up linear over a period of time?
It really depends on the level of the athlete, right? Like if they're a linear athlete, which a lot of people are linear athletes, you know what I mean? And linear, most people have never followed a very good linear program or even a tweaked linear program to the point that they could still have more gains on it. So if that's the case, then it is very linear. But I only stick, when I train most of my clients, I would say I usually go in about 12-week blocks before I kind of shake things up on them a little bit. I use a lot of variation because strongman isn't powerlifting, right? Powerlifting is so specific to those 3 movements, and like you guys are like execution, like surgery, you know what I mean? We're allowed to hitch. We're allowed to do whatever we want. It doesn't matter how ugly it is, you get it there, right? And part of that reason is because you're going to be asked to do, if you compete 3 times in a year, you'll be asked to do 20 different events in that year that like you'll find out about a couple weeks beforehand or a couple months beforehand. Like, figure it out, go. And sometimes it's literally some dude sitting in his basement going, you know, it'd be hard. Let me try to fill that up with like some water or something, so it's like impossible to carry. Then we'll make it 500 pounds and see what people can do. And that's sometimes the event where it's literally you're replicating it by whatever, you know what I mean? Like you don't, it's not like you can go be like, oh, I'm going to go use the wooden log that this competition has. Like, you're like, I don't know, you're figuring it out. So there's a lot of variation, focusing on just making people brutally strong, right?
Yeah.
Like, you look at me, like, I am not a technique expert. I get by on like mistakes that I've made and like getting through and just put in the hard work and the hard time. And a lot of people aren't into the strongman training, but I really think a lot of people could gain something from just doing some of the things like sandbag carries or even farmer's carries, right? Like, because it's just moving big, cumbersome objects. And you think about like old man strength, or like you grab a hold of a wrestler, like you get a wrestler or a plumber or a carpenter, and like they have a certain base strength because they just move things. It's manual labor. That's where so much of my strength came from like growing up with farm animals and like doing construction work. Like, a lot of it was based there. And, there's a lot to be said for a little bit of strongman work to kind of carry over to make a barbell feel like a toothpick, or like very balanced, and you're like, holy crap, like they weigh these things out. Because in strongman, it's not a rare thing to show up at a contest. Literally, we had a contest that a bunch of my people did last weekend. The girls did not know what weights they needed to compete with until literally they were walking into the contest, and he's like, I don't know what weights we're going to do yet. It's that weird. And if you walk in and you've trained 6 months, and we're talking about high level events sometimes, you walk in and you're like, they said this stone is going to be 400 pounds or this deadlift is going to be like 600 pounds. And you get there and they're like, yeah, we changed it. Now it's 650. And you're like, deal with it, strongman. It's always like, deal with it, strongman. And that's cool, right? I love that about it, because for a guy who doesn't prep well, like I don't like execute, I get away with like athleticism and just gorilla strength sometimes, you know? And so that's why I picked up on strongman immediately. Like, I went from touched my first strongman implements, week later, won a show, 2 months later, went to nationals. And it was literally just because all of the dumb stuff that I had been training, not only like the normal barbell stuff, but all the construction things. So I really think a lot of people could gain from a little bit of strongman stuff, at least in their conditioning. It's like a prowler.
Yeah.
Like 12 years ago, people didn't know what a prowler was. People were like, only football players push sleds. Now, if you go to a gym and they don't have a sled to push, you're like, what kind of gym is this? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So things change. And I really think there's going to be a couple things that strongman's too organized to really take it off big yet. They're not there. But like there's a lot of things that are kind of being picked up. Like CrossFit people are starting to do strongman movements. A lot of powerlifting gyms now have logs or sandbags. So a lot of that's kind of coming around, and I'm happy to see it. Like I think it's only going to make people progress faster.
There's a lot of crossover that where, say if it's a yoke, super yoke,
yes.
One of my guys out here discovered, and I've had a super yoke, which has basically been nothing more than a billboard for us. But he picked it up, and it's heavy.
Yeah.
Just without anything, it's heavy. So he picked it up and thought about it. And he's like, if I do this, I don't have to do shit for my abs. I don't have to do anything. I just walk with it down and back. His walkout got better. His pit, or he uses monolift. So his pit got way better. All this stuff got way better. He figured out where the threshold was. He found out where too much was.
Absolutely.
And then dialed it back down, and then just does his walk once every couple of weeks. He's figured out where his minimum is, which that's powerlifting, is you got to find the minimal effective dose, especially the higher you are. It's more pulling people back than it is pushing them forward.
Absolutely.
Which is it's so backwards to how people think.
Absolutely.
Where the beginners need a kick in the ass and to do more work.
100%.
Where the strongest, the stronger need, like, whoa, dude, that's it.
Yeah.
You're done. What the hell you mean?
Right.
But even with them, they got to kind of push it, at least I always did, and the people that I work with seem to do the same thing. So I don't know. They push it and they find out where that edge is.
They would have been great if they didn't.
Then they back it down off that edge, and they know, okay, I just don't want them falling off the edge like I did. Then
I will say the yoke, like the super yoke, like for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, like you stick it on your back and you walk, right? Like it doesn't look like it'd be hard at all, but it is brutal. I will say, like, if you do like a stupid high rep set of deadlifts where like you're like, I'm trying to prove something, and then like you have the flu for like the next day, the yoke is worse than that. Yeah. Like it is the number one drainer, right? So you need to be super careful with it. But I will say, as far as like, how like there's a tolerance to lifting heavy things, especially on your back. Like if you haven't had 500 pounds on your back for a long time, you put 500 pounds on your back and it feels like a truck. Like you lose it, like your tolerance is gone, right? A yoke is a great thing to throw like 800 pounds on your back, walk around for a little bit, 500 pounds feels like nothing, right? Like there's like a super maximal type of effect that carries over a decent amount of time. There was a time when I didn't have very much training time at all, and I would do my yoke walks on Sunday night, completely backwards, but I do yoke walks Sunday night late, super heavy, and then Monday morning I would do squats, and I was hitting PRs like crazy. Even though we're talking about hours later, and I should be run down, I was hitting PRs like crazy just because my body was like, 600 pounds doesn't mean anything when you just had like 900 pounds on your back. You know what I mean? And like, there might not be a whole lot of scientific study behind it or anything, but there's a whole lot of...
Well, I can make the argument that your body really isn't entering the super compensate. It's really not broken down.
Sure.
It is broken down, but it hasn't really started the recovery phase.
Absolutely.
Yeah, even though you did sleep. Or I could also make the argument it wasn't enough work that you recovered throughout the night sleeping. So there's always, the science is great. I'm never going to be one to bash the science guys ever. I read every one of the science review journals that are out there, and they're a great thing. I'm glad that, they're being published.
Yeah.
Out of all of them, I guess I'll give props to, Greg Knuckles and his crew with Mass, because they always seem to hit really good topics. Some of the other ones just kind of like throw shit against the wall, and it's like, oh man, what's,
Or it's information for information's sake.
Yeah.
It's not applicable.
And for me, I'm reading that stuff more because I love it.
Yeah.
And it's a hobby. It's not going to help me in business in any way whatsoever. It's just, wow, this is.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah, it's what I went to school for. It's,
Yep.
I can get pulled down a rabbit hole, and that's why I have these, because I print them, then I read them in paper form, so I can't get sucked down an internet rabbit hole going to see where, they're summarizing the research. I can go find the research, read the research, and then the next thing you know, half my day's gone because I went back to who I used to be 30 years ago when I was really into all that shit.
Yep.
So I got stacks in the office. You'll see just fucking printed out shit all over the place of that kind of stuff. But it's fun, but you can't go directly on that because everybody's so different. Now, there are things that are just common training laws.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's principles.
There's principles that just are always going to be what they're going to be.
And yet there's still some outliers every once in a while. And somebody's always like, well, what about, and you're like, dude, you're not Ed Cohn.
Yes.
Sorry. Like, you're not. Like, I get that a lot. Like, people saying like, well, what about this guy? I'm like, you're not him.
Yeah,
like, you're not doing what he's doing. Like,
leverages matter.
Yes.
You know, a lot.
Yes.
You know, in some sports, a whole hell of a lot. You know, it's like, wow, look at this dude. I'm like, say it's a huge deadlifter.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, you know, it's, if you really want to learn from that person, see what they bench.
Yeah.
You know, because you take somebody that's got, you know, over a 900-pound pull.
Oftentimes there are some gorilla arms.
Yeah. And if they got a 550 plus bench, learn how they benched.
Yeah.
Because that's fucking impressive.
Yeah.
With arms like that, that's
absolutely
way impressive. You'll learn more about the bench from them than you will the guy that's built the bench.
Yes.
Whereas you take the guy with the stubby arms who's got a big pole.
Yes.
All right. You're going to learn more about how to deadlift from them than you will the guy that pulls with super long arms.
Yes.
You know, so it's kind of learning in reverse. Next one.
Okay, I meant to go to this one earlier because you guys were kind of talking about medical bills and things of that nature. But
stupid medical bills.
This one was, how do you deal financially with surgery bills? Recently experiencing just one surgery, I was overwhelmed in debt. I can't imagine paying off several surgeries while balancing life's bills. And you guys talked about, you know, when you're not on salary, so you're not getting paid when you're not there.
Yeah.
So how did you approach that, Brian? And Dave, you can answer that as well.
I'd say I actually had a lot of really interesting conversations with so many of everyone that's kind of off camera right now earlier, and something that we said was like, one thing I've learned through this entire process is like, I don't know that I'd say like it was a bad thing. You know, I don't know that things are good or bad. And like when you think about something like medical bills and you're like, how'd you possibly? And you're like, I don't know. Like, you just do. It's like the family who has 8 kids and like barely paying the bills and putting food on the table, and they get pregnant again and they're like, how are we going to do it? And it's like, you figure it out, right? Like suddenly, like I can't tell you the last time I bought a shirt. I literally have not bought clothes for myself since I opened my business. At the beginning was because you were saving money, and then I just couldn't afford to do that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So like, you just get through. And I can't tell you how many times that like you don't know where the money's going to come from or how it's going to happen, but then suddenly it shows up. You get an email, or like back in the day, like you'd hear stories about people like, yeah, man, I couldn't pay my bill, and then I got a random envelope in the mail where someone left me money or something, you know, like stuff works out. It does. Like if you are truly pushing and you're not being lazy and you're a good person, you're doing good things, like God, universe, whatever people choose to believe in, like, I don't know. Looking back on it now, I don't know. I don't know how I got through it. I did. I 1 second at a time, 1 day at a time, 1 moment at a time. You know what I mean? Like, that's how.
Yeah, I'll follow up one thing that you said, then I'll get into the medical bill part, is, you know, you're talking about the bills, and I remember a couple times when the infancy of the business, you know, working out of my house, and it was after I left training. So it was, you know, all in now. So basically just my wife's salary at the job that she had, which wasn't that great, but enough to be able to pay for the mortgage.
Sure. And
a little bit of food.
Right. Some tuna fish and ramen.
You know, and it really wasn't a matter of paying myself. It was just paying the vendors, you know, paying my suppliers, because I'm selling other people's products. I'm a retailer. And I can remember three or four times distinctly, clearly being in a position like, I don't know what the fuck we're going to do.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. You know, I've already extended my credit, you know, with this supplier. You know, I'm going to lose the supplier, obviously, because I can't afford the bill. And the 2 times, which were just really bad, I mean, really bad, like, you know what, this thing might be over. Then I checked the mailbox, and at the time I was selling Louis reverse hyper and the other equipment that he wanted to get out of. He had a mail order business. He wanted to get out of it. So he kind of pushed that off. He didn't push it off. He gave that to Tracy and I on consignment, and then we used that to build, you know, the company that we have now. And I'd open an envelope, and there was a check in there from a university for like 5 reverse hypers. And I'm like, like, fuck, you know.
We just did it.
I'm like, this just paid the bills. Now,
Yep.
there's still, you know, I still got to pay Louis for the hypers and everything else,
Sure.
but, you know, there was terms that was net 30, so I
Right.
had 30 days until I had to pay him. They weren't going to ship, you know, for 8 weeks. Back then, the shipping time on equipment was long, 8 to 12 weeks. You know, one thing Rogue did was disrupt the market with shipping times. So, I mean, they came in and fucked everybody up because we were all, you know, you take the order, you got 16 weeks, 12 weeks, and that was standard practice. And they come in and it's like shipping in 1 week.
Right.
And the whole market. I mean, that's what you do if you're trying to build a company, is you want to disrupt the market,
Yep.
you know. And they did, you know, and it was for the better of everybody in the industry because everybody's shipping times had to come down. They had to.
Yeah.
Or you were just going to get fucking
Right.
destroyed.
Or you were in a business.
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah. You were going to get drilled. So you had to find ways to do it. But that may have been the only check for 3 years that was for 5 hypers
Yep.
for one school.
Yep.
And that happened
And
a
it
few
was
times.
perfect timing.
And it was a perfect timing. And it's just like, oh my, like, why, you know, and I remember sitting there saying, you know, like, why did this happen? Like, and, you know, I had more issues back then than I had now, but why did this happen to me? Like, out of all people, why does this happen to me?
Right.
You know, I'm the one that doesn't have this shit happen. You know,
Right.
I'm the one that only has adversity. Like, why did I just have this?
Why'd something good happen?
Yeah, like, why
Yes.
did this happen? I'm not used to this.
You're like suspicious.
Yeah, I'm so
even
used
like
to,
the universe. You're like,
yeah, I'm like so used to fighting
Yeah.
on my back.
me too.
You know, and it's like, why? And it's still to this day, you know, it's, but it's a real fucking thing. I mean, if you truly have, and I'm not saying this from a religious standpoint, if you truly have faith that things are going to work out,
Yes.
and it's a deep faith that things are going to work out, they're going to work out.
If you're backing up with work.
Yeah, you got to back it up with
Gotta
work.
back it up.
Yes, 100%, 100%. Have
But-
faith and want to work for it.
But I will say, even there have been times when like I needed something to come through, not that big of a deal, right? Like the big deals have always kind of worked out, like the make or break deals.
Mm-hmm.
But there have been plenty that I thought were make or break deals that like didn't work out, and I was like, oh no, and somehow you scrape together, and then you find a new way to make it. Like you sell something, or you like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like there's always a way. Like
Yeah.
like you said, like. Sometimes it works out. Sometimes, like, because there's going to be someone here watching this right now that's going, man, I had that. It didn't work out. So now I give up. And I'm like, bro,
No, it ain't like
there's
that,
still
man.
times, like, there's still times when it didn't work out that beautifully, but you still scraped it. You still kept going. And eventually, like, I totally
Yeah.
believe that, like, the world moves out of the way of people who know where they're going.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, you had that vision and you were willing to work for it and you believed and you stayed positive. And you just kept going. And it worked out. Right. And when you needed, it seemed like you could not get a break, right? For years, for decades, it seemed like black cloud. And then one day when you really needed it, when that thing really needed it, just bam.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's so cool. You
You
will
know,
never
there's,
forget that.
You know, I'm Garth Brooks fan, so he's got, you know, a lyric, you know,
Yeah.
some of God's greatest gifts are ungranted.
Unanswered prayers, yeah, man.
Yeah, unanswered prayers. So that's true there. Now, from the medical bill standpoint, I've always been overly responsible when it comes to having medical insurance
Sure.
and having deductibles that we were able to afford and pay.
Smart.
And even if it meant the deductible might be a little bit out of reach, but it was going to cover, you know, whatever was going to happen, you
Yes.
know, because I had enough shit happen to me, you know, competing,
Yep.
you know, with torn pecs and, you know, things that had big medical bills, that I would rather have a higher deductible that's going to give me full coverage, and then a lower deductible that's going to get me stuck on some 80-20 thing, and then have $1 million medical bills with $250,000 that you can't afford to pay.
Smart advice.
You know, so really look at your plans, and when you look at your plans, look at it 2 ways. Look at it as far as what you can afford, okay, because that's the given reality. And then you have to look at it as, what if, worst case scenario?
Yes.
What if you were to accumulate over $1 million in medical bills in a year? And it can happen.
And you want to talk about ACL surgery, like, it's so expensive. Medical bills are so expensive. One little thing that happens to 90% athletes, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, can bury you.
Well, anesthesia alone, just boom, you know. So, you know, a hip can be $200,000.
Are you serious?
You know, so it depends. It depends where you go, you know,
Sure,
and you want to be able to give yourself the best options.
Yeah, you don't want to
as well.
skip on a hip.
You know, so you don't want to have to. You know, I see the shit, and I hate to say this, but I see the shit that Goggins has had to go through with the VA, with his replacements and stuff like that, and it's just bullshit. It pisses me off. You know, our veterans should be, you know, I don't want to go down that road, but he's gotten the, you know, the work that he needs done, but, you know, I'm not really too sure that, you know, the guy that does your elbows should be doing your hips, should be doing your knees, should be doing, you know, every joint in your body. You know, it's like, you want the guy, if you're going to have something replaced, you want the guy that's all they do. And during the days that they do surgery, they're doing 10 or 20 a day.
Yes.
You know, so they got,
It's routine.
yeah, it's like they can do this in their
oil.
sleep. They do it so frequently, and then make sure that they have a couple days off to where they're sleeping and fucking resting. And the good surgeons do.
Yes.
You know, they're hard. I will also say this from my experience: the best doctors, best surgeons are going to be some of the hardest people to communicate with. So don't make your judgment based upon them. Make it based upon their assistant.
A lot of very good doctors have very bad bedside manner as well.
That's okay.
Like,
as long as their assistants,
they're
can talk
like,
to you.
they're so locked in to that thing. That's their specialty. They don't worry about talking to people because they're good at cutting people. And I'm like, you stick to that.
Yeah.
You stick to that.
Yeah. They stick to that. Plus, they can't become emotionally.
Not at all.
You know, it'd be a really hard profession.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of respect for
100%.
You know, surgeons and so forth, because they've helped me tremendously throughout my life. But
Where
at the
would we be
same
without
time,
them?
yeah, at the same time, you gotta leave your options as large as you can.
Absolutely.
You know, and as large as you can afford. You know, because I do understand that, and you know, it's a weird fucking age that we're in right now, because a lot of the best general practitioners will no longer accept insurance.
They're bailing.
You know, my GP is private pay. So you know, it's $150 to go and see. And if it's just regular checkup, $150. If I need a cortisone shot and, you know, a boil cut off my back and, you know, 10 other things done, it's still $150.
Yep.
You know, so.
But at the same time, like, I feel like it's different level care. Like,
Yeah.
I do. I feel like that person doesn't have a ton of patients that they're seeing. Like, each one of my, because I'm in the same situation, and every time that, like, you have an appointment, like, you truly feel like you had your questions answered, you weren't, like, rushed out the door. At least I do. As opposed to, like, a normal, especially, like, as I got higher and higher with searching for answers, the second that the specialist knew that it was not theirs, they were like, can't help you, you're out. And I'm like, can you point me towards? And they're like, no, I'm a specialist. Means I don't know. And I can completely respect that. But man, was it frustrating. That was so frustrating. You know?
Or the other thing with my GP is it's by the hour. So if I go in and it's Eric Serrano, so everybody already knows this. So if I go in there and it's just a regular, you know, I get my blood work way more often than most people do. So probably 4 to 6 times a year. So if it's just going in there to renew some meds, you know, that I need refilled, and then reviewing the blood work, and I don't really have a lot going on, I got to sit there and listen to that fucker bitch about my diet or whatever for, you know, and I'm learning the whole time. So I'm not complaining about this by any stretch of the imagination. He's taught me more about, you know, diet, nutrition, health, and so forth, that, you know, weight's not always, it does matter.
Sure.
But if you're going through certain health issues and you're having a lot of weight fluctuation outside of digestive issues, then that's not great for your health.
No.
You know, you want to try to keep the weight as stable as it can be, but that's just more, a good doctor will tell you these things.
Yep.
You know, they're not going to lecture you, they're going to communicate with you. The other thing to put out there, because I get asked this question a lot, you know, don't expect to walk into a doctor and get hormone replacement therapy without creating some type of rapport with them. You know, because everybody's like, well, how can I go in and get a prescription for testosterone?
Right, TRT.
Well, first off, there is TRT clinic. So you can go that route. You can spend an arm and a leg doing it. If you think that you need it, then obviously be tested for it. But you should have a rapport with your doctor to be able to have the conversation first. Because if you walk in there, a 270-pound meathead, acting like a meathead, they're not even going to want to have the discussion with you.
No, it's like a heroin.
Yes.
Like drug-seeking behavior.
Yeah. So you can still walk in there, the 275-pound meathead, and be polite,
but like
cordial,
we discussed earlier, you
intelligent.
Stereotype.
You got to break the stereotype, because then they're going to look at it a little bit differently. They're going to look at it like, oh, look, man, this dude, he's a professional guy. He's got a professional job. I really don't want to see him buying shit on the black market and coming back to me because he's got health issues. So let's get him tested. Let's see what it is. And that's the route they're going to be thinking, compared to this fucking meathead won't quit talking about his bench press. Get the hell out of here. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's whoever your GP is, you want to build a rapport, because you want that to be long term.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And if it's not, find one that will be. And
having a GP that actually cares about you is always a good thing.
Yes.
What the main woman who started taking me through this is she actually goes to the gym, and when I started getting sick, she was my general practitioner for, like, if I have like a cold or something, I go see her. She gives me, like, because I didn't have a lot of health problems throughout my life, and but her caring about me gave me a different level of care and got me to a different level of personnel, because she was an advocate for me. Because talking about medical stuff, if you are not your own advocate, it's very tough to get anywhere in the medical community, like even just get heard at all. So having someone to be able to call that's like, hey, I'm a doctor, I want you to see this patient, goes so far. It can get you in like months and months earlier. So building a relationship not only is a good idea for life, but like having your doctor actually care about your health and your benefit all over is a good thing in general.
Here's another thing from medical standpoint that you just reminded me of. If you have a significant other that is in the hospital, or a good friend of yours that's in the hospital, you need to have a notebook, and you need to be taking notes.
Yes.
Or have a phone,
voice recorder,
and every fucking test that you hear ordered, write it down and make sure it got done. It's mistakes happen.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that the nurses are bad, the doctors are bad. I'm just saying mistakes happen. Tests will forget to be done, and then nobody will take accountability for it because they don't want to get fired. They don't want to get their asses ripped.
Yep.
But if you have everything documented, what's supposed to be done, when it's supposed to be, how it's supposed to be done, and then it doesn't get done, and then you start texting the doctor or calling the doctor.
Yeah.
Or I've seen in one case, somebody go to the doctor's house at 10 o'clock at night and beat on the door, with, somebody in ICU basically dying of leukemia.
Yeah, well, I can see that.
And, it's like, you know what? Fucking do this.
Yeah.
And then it gets done.
Yeah.
If you're just winging it, and you don't need to go Google everything. Just listen to what's being told, make sure it gets done. And because you said the advocate, sometimes you can't be your own advocate.
No.
Because you're too doped up,
Yes.
And morphine and drugged, and you can't.
Yes.
Somebody else has to, because you're either stuck in the ICU or in surgery, or, once you're in recovery, you can be your own advocate.
Sure.
But somebody during that time
who you trust, not like your crazy mom that like wants, Like
Yes.
make sure it's somebody that's like of sound mind that.
Yes, especially once you leave. The ICU is almost the safe, more people die there, but it's the safest place, because you usually have 2 or 3 nurses assigned to you 24/7.
Yeah.
So if you're a family member and you need a break, and your wife or whatever is in the ICU, you can go sleep.
Yeah.
As long as they're there. Yep. Even if something bad happens, it's fucking covered.
Yeah.
When they move to the main floor, start fucking worrying.
Yeah.
Because now you got, one
it's
nurse.
So much. It's so much on those professionals.
Yeah, you got one nurse per 4 beds.
Yeah.
Or something like that. That's where you need to be there. So you don't wish for people to be in ICU, but it's just.
It's a good place for someone to be that's not in a super, super serious situation.
Yeah. It's just the fact of the matter of kind of how the whole thing works. And the more you can be on top of things, the more you could save your significant other's life. It will make the stay shorter, better, more
and also
comfortable.
show that you're bought in and you're paying attention to what's going on.
Yes.
If you're one of those people like, oh, I'm too stupid, those are big words, I don't want to, like, trust me, like, you'll get treated like that. Like, if you're going, no, tell me again, like they're immediately going to be like, okay, well, this person might be a pain in the butt, but they're going to make sure I'm doing my job. You know what I mean? So
you manifest what you expect.
yes, and not saying be a jerk about it, but just be like my grandma likes crushed ice. Please have crushed ice. Like whatever it's going to be that you're trying to, like, just make sure you say it. Don't assume that people are going to read your mind, and you know what I mean? Like, it again comes back to relationships and communication to get the end result.
Yeah. What do you got?
All right, for Brian, what is the definition of never sate, and what does it mean to you?
So Never Sate is the name of my gym, and it was actually a defunct band member's name, or a band. Like, one of my friends had a band and it was named Never Sate, and I went and saw them, and was like, "Hey man, what does the name mean?" And he's like, "Never and sate," and I'm like, "Yeah, what does that mean?" And he's like, "Satiated." I'm like. He's like, satisfied, never satisfied, right? And I'm like, okay. So I kept thinking about it. I was like, man, that's kind of cool. Like, I like how it's like, it's not obvious, but like, the more you think about it, then you're like, all right. And like, I'm a very thankful person, and I like, it gets real dicey when you talk about like thankfulness and versus like never satiated, or like never satisfied. And you're like, well, then are you never happy? And I'm like, different things. You know what I mean? What never sate means is like, even if you can no longer squat, right? Like, we work with a lot of people who don't have their arms, don't have their legs, can't do things like normal people can do. That doesn't mean that they're not part of the team, you know? It means that, like, if you can't do something physically, then you're going to try to get better mentally. If you can't get better mentally, then you're going to try to get better emotionally. Like, it means, like, when I'm driving my car, I'm not just, like, mindlessly doing something. Like, I'm trying to, like, become a better driver, maybe, for instance. Like, it's just always constantly trying to improve your situation, you know? Constant and never-ending improvement all the time. That's just what it's about to me. It means different things, different people. And the good part about it is that it helped me create an umbrella, because it's not like kill Puppy's Gym, you know what I mean? So it has kind of like a different connotation. It's not like that. So I get a wide spread of different people, but it is known as like a place that just is very welcoming for people who we accept that. And it has nothing to do if you lift 5 pounds or 500 pounds. It has to do with like, you give what you have, right? Like, I don't care how strong you are. I can make you stronger. Like, if you come in and you quit after I push you a little bit, then I'm like, if you quit there, you're never gonna, like, it's not you, it's me. Like, sorry, you got to go. Right. And, it's just built a family where there's a certain excellence expected. And since I was able to set it from the beginning, since I was the guy that I'm the gatekeeper that everyone needs to come through, I've been able to keep the quality to a level where it's no problem. Like, we don't have the same gym drama. Like, people aren't on their phones during sets. The only time people are on their phones or to videotape someone getting their PR so they can give it to them or something like that. Like, no one's talking about work. If people are talking about work, literally people be like, I'm squatting. Like, I'm sorry that your day's bad. We can talk about it later all you want. You can whine and complain all you want, but right now, that's not getting us better. Right now, we're doing this. And it goes back to that presence, you know? And so really, it's just about constantly being willing to sacrifice what you're currently at to become what you could be. You know what I mean? And having the courage to actually do that instead of just getting set in your way. Like, a lot of people, when I could no longer really lift as heavy as I could before I got sick, it would have been very easy to be like, okay, I don't want to lift heavy anymore. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that because I'm not good at it anymore. I'm not the top anymore. And I needed to find different ways to make it cool because, or different ways that I enjoyed the training. Just in general, it's all had to change because of all that. You know what I mean? I'm sure you've been through it too. Like,
oh yeah.
I actually I was talking to somebody the other day about, in a video, talking about starting over at zero and how, like, they're like, oh man, I hurt myself and like, I'm so torn up. I'm like, dude, go check out Dave Tate's stuff and just read the laundry list, right? Like, I can give you a laundry list, but mine's not from so much lifting stuff. Like, the number of you guys who just have, like, destroyed yourselves and come back and destroyed yourself and started an empty bar, started, like, and like, again and again and again. I don't understand why people get upset. I can understand why people get upset when they get injured, but I'm like, when I was coming up, the first time I hurt my back and like was getting like weird tingly sensations down my leg and was like going numb and stuff, I was like, I'm in huge trouble here. And I reached out to like a lifter that I knew on T Nation who was like an older guy, probably about my age and super strong, like searcher squat, like 700-pound kind of guy, and was like, has this ever happened to you? And he's like, yeah, look, here's what's going on. I explained and really like calm my nerves down. I still had to get serious medical attention done and stuff, but like, he was able to calm me down. And now there's so much information out there. If they just type in Dave Tate injuries and watch like 5 minutes of video, they're like, well, he's had this 7 times. Like,
yeah,
this isn't that big of a deal.
Sometimes the hardest PRs to make are 135, 135, and 135.
Yes.
So it's the squat, it's the bench, it's the deadlift, it's getting back to a plate. You know, it's that sometimes because you're like you said, starting from zero.
Yes.
So I mean, you have surgery, you come back, you're at zero, and it's frustrating. You know, and it's going to be really, really frustrating no matter how you approach it or what your mindset is or anything until you get a plate on the bar.
Yep.
You know, because you know, that's the weird. Hardest fucking. It's like fine if you hit a plate, you're like, okay, it's cool now.
Right. Yeah.
I
can build from here.
Yeah.
But like if I couldn't have gotten here, it's almost like hope's lost.
Yes.
You know?
I mean, I took it down to the plate because it's happened so many times. But we, before I had my first hip replaced, I remember the week before I went into surgery, there's a video somewhere on our channel where I'm using a cane to get up to the monolift. I got 3 plates per side with some chains. And it's an easy weight. So I just wanted to know how many I could do.
Right.
So pain was fucking ungodly. That's why I had the cane. So, you know, I used the cane, get up there, and ended up doing 12 reps. I'm like, okay, 315, 5 chain per side, and whatever it was, 12 reps. I'm going to do this a month after surgery, or whenever it was. As soon as I do this, I'm going to know I'm better than I was before I went in.
Yep.
All right, so I ended up actually doing it 4 weeks after surgery. And when I went in to see the surgeon, I'm like, man, check this out. And he looks at it and he's like, is that squatting? I said, well, it is a really high fucking box. And he's like, no.
There's like, a lot of people on the internet would not consider this a squat.
Like, and that's kind of what I was thinking. I'm like, you're not busting my balls about my high box because you're the one that told me to do this shit.
He's on YouTube commenting.
Yeah. And he's like, no. What you don't understand is we put this plate up in their hip because your hip was fractured as well. And they're held, he said, think about the little tiny screws that would hold a picture on a wall. Oh. He said, no, even smaller, the tiniest screw you can think of. Until that bone grows around and absorbs through that plate, that's all that's holding that right now. And you're putting, how much is that? And I said, obviously too much to hang a picture on a wall. And I said, but I am like keeping constant muscle tension and, you know, I'm coming up with every,
right.
And I left thinking, oh, fuck, I shouldn't be doing this. Yep. I need to back it down, let the bone heal. Yep. Where I thought, man, this is cool. I'm going to be fucking killing this in, you know, 6 weeks. And, but that's when I'm like, okay, now this 135 thing is going to go back to 135. But even with that, you know, getting to 90 degrees, because this way it was high, getting to 90 degrees at 135, you know, after you're looking at 6 months.
Yep.
You know, if sometimes you may never make it back to 135. I can't hold a bar on my squat back, or I can't hold, you know, I got to use safety bars and stuff like that. So I have no 135 option.
Sure.
You know, not with a free squat.
Yep.
It's gone.
Right.
You know, so, and those, I remember having this conversation with Casey Williams when he was going through his, you know, colitis and ulcer. I'm like, Casey, look, man, it's going to slap you. You're going to be weak as fuck. Just 135, man. It's just let it take everything from you. Yep. Until you won't be able to do the bar. Just you'll be cool once you get it back to 135. And just focus on that, because don't focus on the 550 that you used to do or the 500 that you used to do. I'm not saying you'll never do it again, but I'm saying that's way too far off the focus.
Right.
Especially when you have rehab and you got bones and you got all this other stuff going on, you know, and the mental aspect you still need to deal with, especially if you're a competitive lifter. You know, everything that you've done and basically everything you think that you've existed for just got ripped away.
Yeah.
And you haven't matured enough to know, that this isn't my identity, but you still believe it is. It's bullshit that we tell ourselves as we get older. It still is a big part.
I'm going through it right now. Mm-hmm. Like when I got sick and lost my strength, like the strange part was, how like, how 135 should feel, 225, certain things, right? And when they don't, it's almost like if you go to push 225, like bench, and it doesn't move the way that 220, you're like, what magic is this? You know what I mean? Like it's like someone stole your power. And like the frustrating thing is you're like, it's never going to come back. It's never going to come back. And like you said, like 6 months, and like people, when you just get injured and you say 6 months, it's crushing, right? However, you look at your career, you look at my career, and you're like, 6 months. Like, you know how many times I've like not been doing anything for like 6 months? Like it's happened so many times, and here I am now, and you're going, oh man, I hope I can get there someday. I'm like, bro, like, just stick with it. Like everyone out there, just stick with it long enough. Like, keep coming back. Be too stupid to quit. Like that's how you get far in this sport. Yeah,
I mean the way that I've gotten through the identity crisis of not being able to compete, you got to, for those listening, I've said it hundreds of times, but I can't assume the people listening now have heard it. I started competing in '83 and retired in 2004. So, I mean, that was the number one priority in my life. Anything else was a distant second. I'm not saying I didn't do anything else. I still got a degree. I still worked multiple jobs at a time to be able to do that, but it was my number one priority. And it got to a point where I couldn't grab a bar anymore to squat because the shoulder's frozen. I'm not going to get it replaced. I'm not going to get into the details behind that, but I'm just not going to do it. Success rate isn't good enough. And that was it. It was over. And at and at the same time, I kind of think I knew it was, so it was kind of a clashing of two worlds, the mental side knowing I'm not really going to get better. I might be able to put my best lifts together if I'm lucky.
Sure.
But I'm probably not going to get better at this point. And the damage has accumulated, and I won't know the full extent of my wear and tear until 10, 15 years from now.
Exactly.
And I knew that, and I understood that, and I knew that. And at that point, I started to see what my family history was because my parents were getting older. And I kind of knew the road that I was looking at. Like, okay, what can I do to challenge myself? Right. So that's when the whole bodybuilding, Justin Harris, all that was just a means to not cope with reality. It was my way to dodge the real world by finding something that was really mentally fucking hard to do.
Yeah.
That was a distraction from dealing with the real reality of I wasn't able to do what I thought I was.
You replace that one distraction with the other. Like,
well, it was my identity.
One addiction. Yeah, exactly.
It was my identity. So my identity was wrapped around this whole thing and work.
Yeah.
Everything was wrapped around that. And so it was just like ping-ponging around to different things until, I still ping-pong around a little bit. But now what I found is and the thing with the bodybuilding and all that is I don't really give a fuck what I look like, which is odd. But when you come up as, a 12-year-old power lifter, with, a bad childhood, 12. So I wasn't looking for attention, it helped deal. I guess I can't explain what I'm trying to formulate, but I really didn't, the bodybuilding thing really wasn't a thing.
You didn't need someone else.
I didn't need that validation. Yeah. I just wanted to be fucking strong though.
Sure.
I liked being fucking strong.
Sure.
I liked knowing
it's
that
protection.
If I'm sitting on an airplane, I'm the strongest fucking guy on the plane.
Yeah.
Wendler's got a funny story where, he came in to do a seminar, and this is when he was still in, he was in Illinois or something like that. And he's like, you know what? I'm the strongest fucker on this plane. And then when he goes to get off, he sees Ed Cones on the same flight. And he's like, God damn it. And I've been at the Horseshoe a couple times for the football games there. And I'm like, you know what? I'm probably the strongest fucker in this whole, and this is when I was competing. And then you find out later the next day, one of the guys that I train with is there, and he's like, God damn it, I can't go anywhere where I'm not the strongest fucking person. And, but that never mattered, but strength did. So when that started to get taken away, it started to take, brutal hits. Where I find now is I make goals in specific lifts that I have no idea how good I am. Then I'll test them and then get as strong as I can at them, and then push the limit. But it's only one. It's like I tried to do 2 or 3 and kind of make it like a meet.
Sure.
Too much mental energy.
Yeah.
Too much mental energy. Too much. And it's already enough now that as I get closer and closer to, doing one of my stupid tricks or whatever you want to call them, I fall back into that old behavior. And I don't know if that old behavior will ever totally go away, but it's definitely more tame than what it used to be, because it used to be very destructive, is not in a violent type of way, but in a self-destructive
I can relate to that. Yep.
What else you got?
All right, this one is from the live stream, kind of on those topics. I just answer this with the best ability given the information you've been given, but at what point do you need to start seeing a professional about nagging injuries or pain, things like that? Obviously, you don't know what they're dealing with, but what would you suggest?
You want to go?
My answer is going to always be immediately, only because you don't know. Here's the thing, man, is we're in a digital world, and a lot of trainers are overstepping their scope of practice.
Agreed.
And so trainers are now pharmacists by prescribing things. They become registered dietitians by prescribing meal plans. They've become physical therapists. They've become psychologists, psychiatrists. They've become all these things, which each and every one of them, with one screenshot, could be sent a legal letter
100%.
and not have liability insurance to cover them, because what they're doing would be considered negligence.
Yes.
So when you're doing work that's out of your scope of practice, you can't go to your insurance provider, business insurance provider, and say, hey, look, I told this person to take fish oils, and I didn't know they were on blood thinners, and they bled out, and, well, you shouldn't be prescribing.
Yep.
So it becomes a very dangerous slope, that people are walking to, where there are people who are professionals in all these things. You don't have to be the professional at everything, so if anybody has a nagging, injury or whatever it is, they can ask you, right? If they say, hey, look, my feet are fucking killing you, what would you do? I can say, I've had plantar fasciitis. Yep. This is what I did. Yep. I can educate them on that. I can't say, I think you have plantar fasciitis, because now I'm diagnosing.
Yes.
And now I'm a doctor.
Yep.
And what I think you should do is this, because now I'm a physical therapist and I'm prescribing. And if you want to flip this all around, it's amazing how pissed off trainers and strength coaches will get if a physical therapist or a doctor or a dietitian recommends any type of strength training.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Yep. So it's okay for them to step on all their toes and say they're stupid and don't know what they're doing, but it can't be the same. So
it's hard. That's a hard truth, but it's true.
You can certainly help navigate the person through the gauntlet, because there are dietitians that suck. There's a difference between a nutritionist and a dietitian.
Sure.
Some states have more flexibility than other states as far as nutritional practice and dieting.
Yep.
And you can always educate. That's the key. It's how you it's how you communicate.
It's true.
Communication is the key for the podcast.
Yeah.
But it's how you communicate what you're saying, because you can educate, you just can't do those other things. And it's frustrating to see how many people get away with it, because it didn't used to be. I take that back. It's probably always been this way, but man, I used to get, just from our old Q&A going way back 15 years ago, man, I used to get threat letters all the time from a Q&A answer that was, man, it sounds like you tore your ACL. And just dumb shit like that. And it's like, holy crap,
I can't believe us. Ugh.
What the hell? And it's like, any of these threat letters can actually become major problems,
1,000%.
if they're not dealt with and contained. And fortunately, I was able to, deal with, all of them just by a phone call and, apology and giving decent referrals and stuff like that. But if it falls into the wrong person that wants to find an attorney that wants to work on consignment, try to find a fast settlement and a quick buck, and you end up being the quick buck, it's not worth it.
No. And like, the bottom line is, like, without a picture, even a doctor is still kind of guessing, right? Like, they need to get some imaging. Like, a doctor's still going to say, I think it's your ACL. Let's get some pictures so I can confirm, right? So no one knows. You especially don't know over the internet. You don't know. Like, from my house, it looks great, buddy. I don't know what to tell you. You know what I mean? But, like, the answer is always, like, go get pictures, right? Like, if you have medical insurance, use it. Go get some pictures taken, right? And then if they still ask me questions, I'm always like, I agree with the doctor. Whatever doctor said, I agree with the doctor. Because I was in a situation where someone had the same type of situation, and they were asking me, like, how'd you come back? Like, how quickly? And I told them how quickly I came back. And then the only thing that saved my butt in that situation was I said, this is what I did, not like, this is what you should do. But ever since then, now, if somebody like is like, hey man, can you help me out with this? I'm like, are you 100% cleared? Like, or if somebody's in person, like if I'm working with like one of my teammates and stuff, I'm like, all right, man, we'll work around. Like, we do what we got to do. But like, dicey game online. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I am not a doctor. I am not a surgeon. I am not. I am a dumb guy who lifts some strong things. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, and this wasn't, the funny thing with this is, this isn't freaking rocket science. I knew this when I was working as a personal trainer fucking 30 years ago. And I did have ACSM and the NSCA, CSCS, and, I had all the highest certifications. But I still knew this, and getting, a doctor's clearance, or now you're never going to talk to the doctor, but you will speak to the nurse practitioner or somebody like that, and you will get the sign off, or not.
Enough to cover your butt.
You know what I'm saying? You
You
have enough to be able to cover it, and then you're good. And then you need to be intelligent, communicate with the person that you're working with, because Gen Pop's going to be completely different than an athlete.
Yes.
An athlete, is going to push through things. Some things you can push through.
But they'll push till they break.
Yeah, and some things you got to push, train around.
Yep.
And sometimes if you want to keep the ball 100% in your court, and you want to be 100% accountable and liable for what you're doing, then you have to make your own personal decision if this is going to be something you're going to train through, train around, or ignore. And that's up to you.
Because at the end of the day, you're responsible.
Yes.
Right? Like, even though I'm like, no, Dave, don't worry about that. You need to do this. You still went, well, everything that I've read said something different, but he said it. So I'm going to, like, that was your decision, right? Like, you're in control of your attitude and your actions. And like you mentioned so much earlier, like, just taking responsibility for that is so massive.
And knowing and going back to building a relationship with a GP is going to go a long way here, because if you are training for any strength sport, you're going
to be friends.
Well, yeah, the odds are very high. You're going to go in nicked up. It's a lot of times it's not the strongest person who wins. It's the person that's the healthiest. And I mean
1,000%.
I don't mean healthy from organ, heart, and all that standpoint. I mean joint health, muscle health.
Least broken.
The least broken person, well, if it's powerlifting, there can be a 200-pound difference in their all-time best totals.
Yep.
And the one has the smaller total can win if they go in healthier than the one that's not.
Yep.
So that's where you got to be really smart on, is this something to train around, something to train through? That's at least how I went about it, is where am I at now? How many weeks out am I?
Sure.
Okay, I'm far enough out I can train around this. Actually, I'm far enough out I can take some time off.
Sure.
Or fuck, I am not far enough out.
How am I going to figure this out?
I got to go.
Yeah.
And if I go, something might break, when I go, but I got to figure out a way to go. And that's where having a physical therapist that you've built a relationship with, having a doctor that you've built a relationship with, if you build a strong enough relationship with them, and any strength athlete who's been around will agree with me. They will be willing to have conversations with you off the record.
Yes.
But they will not back up what they say.
No, but they'll be straight with you.
Record.
Yes.
They will be straight, and they'll tell you, you know, this is stupid.
Yeah.
But on a scale of 1 to 10, it's like a 4 stupid.
Right.
All right. So to me, that's like, okay, I'm going.
Yeah.
You know, this is an 8 stupid. Okay, I'm going. You know, it's a 10 stupid off. 5.
But I actually had a situation for my shoulder surgery. When I was coming out of it, when I got into it, maybe they told me about it, but I don't remember them telling me that afterwards I wasn't going to be able to lift up. They said 1 pound. I would not be able to lift up for like 3 months or something. And so when they broke that news to me in the doctor's office after I had my surgery and everything, and they're like, "Oh, you're healing well," or whatever. And at this time, I was far advanced, right? And they're like, "Yeah, you can't lift 1 pound." And I was like, "Doctor, I'm not saying that you don't know what you're talking about, but like that means I can't lift up that water bottle." And like I walked in here with water, but like I can't wash myself with a wet wash, and it got literally heated because he's like, "Yes, that's exactly what it was." Because I was kind of a jerk because I was like, "So you're telling me that I can't?" And then he came back because little alpha, you know, whatever, and literally screaming match with the doctor just because like all that I wanted as an athlete was like, dude, I'm not a normal person. I'm not going to be stupid, like, but don't lie to me and tell me like I'm not. I'm going to push limits past where you want me to. You know that. I know that. But if you tell me 1 pound, then you're basically telling me like, do whatever you want because you didn't. If you were like, hey, look, if you have a good relationship, which I do not with this guy, and obviously I don't now. If you have a good relationship, a lot of times off the record, they'll be like, look, stupid. Yes. Here's what I'm supposed to say. But here's, you know what I mean?
Yes. And you're not the only one. I've burned a couple bridges with doctors.
I wish I didn't.
Being the same way because I was just young and stupid and realized, you know what, this is a waste of time because it's not really helping me.
Right.
And then when I realized, you know, be cordial, be polite, make visits when I don't really need them. Yep. You know, checkup visits and stuff like that. And, then I was able to build that relationship. It was easier to have those off the record, you know, type of conversations. And then what ends up is you end up being the guy that's got the photo on the wall because now you're the one that's like, you know, look, I reattached this pec and this dude should never have been able to bench 400 again. I even told him that, but he ended up benching 610 and that's him up there, you know? So yeah, you can, you know what I'm saying? So it becomes that billboard.
Yes, you're the success story that sells, and they will put extra time in.
Yeah, and they're not looking for it. It doesn't happen
without the friendship.
Yes, you got to have that because they're not going to be able to do that. And I was also kind of smarter on the other side because of Elite FTS when I started when I started expanding the Q&A beyond just me, because it started with just me answering questions. And I knew the direction I wanted to go, which was going to be strength coaches, power lifters, physical therapists, and so forth. So I was vetting out the best people that I could find in the country. And, you know, through Buddy Morris, I found, oh man, his name escapes me right now. I should be embarrassed for this, and I am, because I just had it on my mind. But a physical therapist, and man, that was one of the greatest things I ever did because I put him here on the Q&A, so it helped everybody with the Q&A. He would, you know, post in the physical therapy thing. If
That's so nice.
If somebody posted in the physical therapy thread, you know, which was on that section, he would read it. You know, so at least he was watching to see what other people were saying. So I had oversight from that. Yeah. And I could call him and say, dude, look, my shoulder is fucked. Yeah. Like, what am I supposed to do? Well, explain to me what fucked means.
Yeah. He's like, how in the woods are we here? Like, I think you can, 2 weeks you're going to be. Yes. Or like, you need to see me tomorrow.
Yes. Like, and was, you know, like he understood, you know, you're stupid. You know, this is fucking crazy, but I think you can pull this off. Right. But it's going to shorten your career. Like, I don't give a fuck about that. I care about this meet, which is in 3 weeks. What do I got to do? Is this going to help? You know, and then that conversation ensues. But again, it's what Michael Hope was his name. So it was, you know, off of the record type of stuff like that. And probably one of the best physical therapists that I ever communicated with back in, you know, then. And I've communicated with many since then that still can't even hold a candle to what this guy knew, because he was working with Buddy Morris and any athlete that Buddy had wherever he was, you know, coaching, you need to call Michael. You need to call Michael. You
Sure.
need to call Michael. And so he was working with people who had that mentality. Like,
Yep.
I don't give a fuck what I need to do.
Right.
I got to
Just
get
me
back on the field.
Yeah. Getting back on the game.
All right. I have an off season. I'll take
Yep.
care of it then.
Yeah.
You know, and so it wasn't his specialty, but he kind of found a way to navigate that landscape, you know, with very professional yet abrasive dialogue.
Yeah.
Like, you knew it was fucking stupid,
Yes.
you know, but you knew which level of stupid it
Yes.
was.
And I think sometimes you need to jump around to maybe a couple different
yes.
people. Like right now, there's somebody listening. Like, man, I do not have that type of rapport with my doctor. And like,
Find a
hey,
new
man,
one.
some people don't get along, right? Like, but you know, when you go into your doctor and like you kind of throw that kind of straight talk to your doctor, be like, look, I'm not your normal guy. Here's some things about me, right? Like, you start breaking it down serious to your doctor, and you're gonna know immediately whether you hit it off, because you're gonna read something off that doctor. Because sometimes all that doctor needs to do is work with an athlete one time, like an athlete who's stupid in the head, who's like, I don't care what you say, I'm going to do it anyway. And then they have a couple of those experiences with that person. They're like, okay, different type of person. And when you go in and you're like, this is me, they're like, okay, I have a recognized animal of what you are. And there's a lot of doctors that want nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
Right. And so like you need to find your person.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. Next one.
You have some pretty crazy mindset challenges you like to put in your programming. What has been the most challenging one you've done for yourself, Brian?
I'm going to use the pisser as you answer.
Yeah, go for it, man. So the whole idea of a mindset challenge for me is I speak about it in some of the other videos that hopefully you guys see from the channel, but I have a good bit of trauma in my past that doesn't allow my brain to rest very easily. So if I don't go very long without pushing myself mentally somehow, like I'm able to use the physical as like a vehicle for like mental and emotional change. And there's so few things in my life that I'm able to push myself to that limit where I'm either going to quit or I'm going to persevere. And I'm going to have to make that choice. And whatever I end up choosing is going to bleed over into other areas of my life. So I use the mindset challenges as specifically written things where I'll like sit in a dark room and be like, what's really going to suck? And something like a 10-minute plank, right? Like get into the plank position, just stay there. Just don't do anything but hang out for 10 minutes. It seems like it wouldn't be that bad. You're not really doing much, but like when you leave and there's just like sweat points under your palms, but that one's really not that tough. That one's tough mentally, but not physically. I'd say there's been many for me. One of my more memorable ones was I was doing a 500-pound squat with an SSB. I was doing 8 reps at 500 pounds, and then I'd turn and I'd sprint 400 meters, come back, squat 8 at 500 pounds, sprint 400 meters. And I think I did that on the day before my 35th birthday. It's on my channel somewhere. I did that and puked my brains out, but that wasn't because of the parasites. That was because of that, of just pushing so hard. Another really tough one that I can think about was when I first started getting involved with, seriously in strongman, a 300-pound keg. You guys have all carried a keg of alcohol, I'm assuming, if you were at any size college. And a keg of alcohol typically weighs about 180 pounds, right? So it seems very heavy, but in the strongman world, a 180-pound keg literally is like a lightweight, middleweight female type of keg. Like it's really not that heavy. For guys, you're looking at like 300 minimum for guys my size, like a 220, 240-pound guy. So like a 300-pound keg seemed very, very intimidating at the time, and it was the heaviest one at our gym. It was all that we could pack into a keg. So I tried walking with it, and literally getting across my gym made me feel like my face was going to explode, and it just wasn't very much fun at all. And the way my gym is set up is just a pole barn in the middle of the country, and about 200 meters away is another barn. And we just use that for like running 400 meters or carrying things 400 meters, whatever the case may be. And so because I was so afraid of this 300-pound keg, I decided I would carry it all the way to the barn and back. And so I set off with it. And this was actually one of Uncle Nick's first days at the gym. I carried it out to the barn and realized when I turned around how far away 200 meters actually is when you have a 300-pound keg in your hands. Turned back around, and that wasn't a one shot, right? Like, I had to break it up, obviously. It took me about twice as long to get it back as it took me to get it out there. And when I got it back, I didn't even say anything to anyone. I put the keg on the ground, I laid down, and Nick, who didn't even know me at the time but saw just how much pain I was actually in, just walked over with a couple water bottles, put them next to me, and just walked away. And there I stayed for probably about an hour before I had to go coach. And then coaching, the way my gym's set up, it has bay doors on each end. And literally, I would coach walking through while I walked out the other door and threw up. Then I'd walk back through throwing up, so I walked out the other side. And that was one of Uncle Nick's first day. And when he saw that, he was like, this might be a good place for me. So that one was a particularly horrible one. But, yeah, what else you got, man? Dave's man.
Dave, what do you got for most intense sets? I'm assuming it involves meadows, probably.
No, actually, it was the leg training session that I think I actually stroked out on. It was after this one that all my enablers kind of flipped on me and told me that I can't train legs by myself anymore. Because at the time, I think it was around 2011, I got a hold of John, I think because I wanted help with cutting weight again.
Sure.
And it was because I already went through the first hip replacement and wanted to get, it was long enough that I can pull my weight down, and told him that, he knew my history, with Berardi when I got down and kind of back and forth type thing. I'm like, I want to just be 250. Like, that's a good place to be. I'm like, right. I'd be happy there. I'd be cool there. And, I don't want to do the carb cycling thing because
Sure.
I don't really care that much about trying to maintain muscle. Not saying that carb cycling is better at maintaining muscle.
Sure.
But I had a lot better result with that, trying to diet down and keep muscle.
Absolutely.
Working with Justin as opposed to Shelby had a more conservative, approach, which I got way leaner. So there's pros and cons.
So Shelby was before this?
Justin was first.
Okay.
All right. Then I had Shelby. So it was Berardi, then Justin.
Sure.
And then Shelby. And this was me still trying to seek that challenge,
Sure.
And Justin was more intriguing because it was like, dude, we can blow you the fuck up.
Yeah.
You got a lot of muscle. And that became a big mental challenge. And the diet was a larger mental challenge because of the way it was set up. And it was the whole lifestyle type of thing. Where with Shelby, it's like, you know what? I don't want to do it like that.
Sure.
I don't want to have days where I got to eat 12 meals and other days where it's going to be 5. It's just, let's just keep it.
Sure.
It was still a little bit of carb cycling, but more cardio than Justin for sure. But that was also because I started at a lower calorie count.
Sure.
To begin with.
Absolutely.
Where with Justin, my calories are already pretty high because of my work with Berardi.
Yep.
So the calories were up because that was just about getting me to eat clean when I wasn't used to doing that from being a 308 for so many years. And so when
he was
John,
into like G-Flux and stuff at that time too.
Yeah, and at that time I tried to go back and eat like a bodybuilder when I competed when I was in college, and I'd throw up. I'd throw up. So my body was actually allergic to the healthy food. And that was the conversation I had with Berardi when I called him. I'm like, man, I don't know how exactly to explain this to you, but I think I'm allergic to eating healthy food.
My body's repulsed by
by
chicken that's not fried.
Everybody else I told was kind of like cracking up about it. I'm like, no, man, I'm being fucking serious. Like, I get through 3 good meals and then I'm yakking all day. And then I go to McDonald's and it's all cool. And I'm like, I don't get this. And he did. He's like, I think I got this. I think I know what it is. No, not really. But it's not a common thing. But I had to get the calories that I needed to stay at the weight that I was competing at least for the last few years. I had to pretty much eat everything in sight. And I don't have a big appetite. No. So then it became, what's the calories per bite in the least amount that I can eat, which ended up just being a bunch of shit.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
so it still had the protein to be able to recover. And I mean, it wasn't total shit, but it was,
It's just packaged.
it wasn't,
better tasting.
Yeah, exactly. Everything I ate came in a box or a package. You know, it's just the way it was. And, but anyhow, when I got to John, it was I just posted a thing on my Instagram showing the weight loss chart that I was keeping during that. What you'll see on there is I dropped all the way down into the 220s.
Yeah.
And what people don't understand is once I hit 250, you see a little spike. And that spike was, to me, I was done. I'm like, okay, there's the cheat meal. And he's like, oh, what are you doing?
Right.
And I'm like, I'm fucking done, man. It's ready for the you know, and he's like, no. He's like, you always rebound because you get a post-diet rebound, especially if you get under 8%, if you get under a certain percentage of body fat, there's going to be a rebound when you start putting, you know, food back in your system again. And it's very anabolic. So it's a good growth state. So I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm ready for this rebound.
Right.
You know, we'll get that, do a mini diet, get it back down to 250. So he starts pulling this shit like, man, come here. Because I don't have mirrors in the gym, never have.
Yeah.
And you take a picture, like, you see right there, man, that's a vein right there in your shoulder. It's almost popping out. 2 more weeks. That's going to really be popping out. I mean, he's like vascular city.
Right.
So I'm like, I want a fucking shoulder vein.
I've never had a shoulder vein.
Yeah, I want one that pulsates, man. You know, I was like, fuck yeah, let's do this. And he kept pulling these little tricks every 2 weeks. And then I remember the last 4 weeks before it ended, it was like, man, look at this one. And he took a picture of this phone, and he must have changed the filter or whatever. And he's like, you see those running up through, you know, like you got dick veins going up through your abs. So I'm like, veins through my abs? No. He's like, no, look. And I'm like at home and like fucking looking. I'm like, he's like, I tell you what, man, 2 more weeks, you'll be able to see those. And I'm like, oh man, I fucking never had veins in my abs. And you get into this mindset, man, that I got to do this. And then once I did that, I remember that Saturday I got on the scale and it was like 220. And I'm like, no, it was 218. I'm like, fuck this. You're like, I haven't been this since junior high school.
You're like, I can't wear medium shirts. I can't.
No, it's like, I went in the gym. I'm like, John, you know, look, all due respect, fuck you. I'm done with this. And then he looked at me and he said, now, how much do you normally gain when you rebound? Just out of curiosity from working with Shelby and Justin and everybody else. How much do you normally gain? I said, 25, 30 pounds. So what do you weigh now? And I'm like, you fucker. You know, because it would have put me right at 250. Yeah. So it did. It put me right at 250, right on the nose. So he was always a step ahead of me.
Yeah.
You know, that was the thing with John with the training. He was always a step ahead of me.
I was a big fan of it. Like when he used to write for T Nation and stuff and started Precision Nutrition, I soaked up his stuff. I loved his stuff, man.
So, this is Meadows that I'm talking about, not Berardi. But yeah, Berardi's still a huge fan of his stuff. You know,
Meadows is awesome.
Yeah, and so anyhow, I end up 250, and I hold that for 18 months, and then my other hip had to get done, which kind of flew that off. And then I had other complications that came about after that. So I haven't had that point yet to be able to pull it back down, to have that discussion with anybody, you know. And I won't have the discussion until I'm ready to actually do it.
Yeah.
So it's just not going to be a part of the game at this point. My first goal, you know, kind of going off topic, was to get all the blood work right.
Sure.
And that took a year to get all the blood work. I mean, Serrano right, which is that's a different right than a normal right. It's like, and I'm still a couple things are a little low. D has to come up. You know, things that people wouldn't really think that much about need to come up a little bit higher than what they are to be able to satisfy him. But they're in a decent enough place that if I wanted to start cutting weight, I could. But when I was training with John, it was from 2011. His goal was to get his pro card. I'm like, we can do this. You know, I be as honest as possible. You know, I don't know that much about bodybuilding, but I fucking can see where your weak points are. I can see what you need to do, and I can push you harder than anybody's ever pushed you in your life. So we spent several years building up. Saturday was leg day. You know, it was his hard leg day. Sure. And I fucking love training legs hard. And we built up a work capacity that when he would have people come down to visit, they were fucking either passing out or puking. Yeah. I mean, it was ridiculous, the the work capacity that got built up over that period of time, that I look back now at some of those training sessions, I'm like, I don't know how in the fuck we did this, but I can remember having coolers full of ice bags, you know, to be able to put on the back of our neck and our wrists just between sets, because we were going to pass out. And one of the days we couldn't train in the morning, so I'm like, fuck it, I'll go in at night. And my brain, man, at certain things, and it was the leg press that did it. It was working up to a certain weight, whatever the weight was. I don't know, you know, what it was, because we use reverse bands on the leg press. And I'm looking at it, and this shit starts like, can I do 20 with this? I'm like, man, I don't fucking know. What about 30? I'm like, I should be able to do 10. I'm like, why am I fucking even questioning if I can do 30? Right. And now this ping pong starts. Yep. It's like,
inside your head, just like,
it's like, it's this, now I know this is going to happen.
Right.
All right. Now what
you made a decision, you crossed into some other territory.
And
now.
I am pissed that I'm even questioning myself. Meanwhile, I don't even know if I can do 5. Right. Right. But it scares you. So you get it. I get to that point where it's like, man, I don't know about this shit.
You're trying to trick yourself and play head games.
I'm like, well, it's this leg press, so anything really bad happens, I'm not going to fucking die. It's not going to crush me, like the spot pins will catch it. So I do a set of like 50 or some shit like that, which takes forever because I'm pausing at the top and doing whatever I can do, and then get up, and then next thing I know, like, and this is after doing, you know, seated leg curls, leg extensions, lunges, squats, and all this other shit beforehand. I wake up and I'm on the floor, and I'm like, what the fuck? And then I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, I'm sweating like crazy. And it wasn't sweat. I pissed myself. I shit myself. So I basically blacked out or knocked myself out. I think I had a fucking stroke or a mini stroke.
Definitely some sort of like shock or something.
It was somehow I got off of the leg press. I remember that. Got off of that. Ended up on the floor, wake up, and all I can do at this point is fucking just take my shit off, you know, because I'm not going to walk around with shit on the floor's a mess and all this other kind of shit. And I'm like, man, should I keep doing more? And I'm like, man, my head hurts like a motherfucker. And I'm like calling John. I'm like, John, listen, man, I don't know exactly what happened, but I ended up passing out, and I woke up and there's like shit on the floor, and I pissed myself, and my head kind of hurts. I feel bad. If this was you, would you finish your workout, or would you just like call it a day? And I remember him saying, well, what do you have left to do? And it wasn't a big deal. It was like standing leg curls or some shit. Right. And it's like, just do the leg curls and get the hell out of here. And but that next Saturday, you know, I have an intervention where it's like, look, man, you can't do this.
You need someone to throw the towel.
And we were training with somebody at the time that was a nurse, and she's like, you can't.
Yeah.
Unless you can control yourself, you can't do this anymore. You got to have somebody be able to back it down, you know, because obviously something happens to you.
Yeah. Where your brain just like,
when you get under those challenge sets that you certainly don't have the means to control. And so after that one, though, I became a little bit more cautious.
Do you remember soreness from that one? Was like soreness really bad, or is that
any
not really
any of the leg stuff that we had? Keep in mind, I was in a nutritional deficit. Sure. Okay, so but we were using any type of, I think at the time it was the Biotest Intra, and then it was his Intra product. I only when I'm really in shape, I only get sore that day. So if I train in the morning, I get sore later that day, and it can be cramping soreness. I mean, bad soreness, but the next day is fine. Yep. I don't have DOMS or any of that kind of always been that way. Yeah. Now, the deeper nutritional deficit goes, I'll actually stop getting sore, which becomes concerning because I don't know if I'm breaking down the muscle tissue the way that I should. But the Intra, I think, helped with the recovery at the time, because it was in a deficit, and it was a lot of carbohydrate that was kind of going in there.
Tastes like angel food cake, if I remember correctly.
Yes, where with his bodybuilding type stuff, my legs never really got sore, and I think a lot of that comes down to being a power lifter for so long is I'm muscle fucking everything. I'm not really focusing on using the muscle like I would if I was doing a different bodybuilding type movement. So over a period of time, we had to remove squats from his training, which allowed me to start to focus more on working the muscle and being able to reduce the weight.
Sure.
To take the stress, because the other hip was obviously, I knew it was going to have to be replaced, but it started to fire up, and it's like, okay, fuck, you know, this is going to happen soon. I need to go in with every muscle that supports and surround it as strong as I can be.
Absolutely.
And I need to make sure those muscles are actually being trained and that this isn't just all neural and being pushed through just out of, you know, neuromuscular reasons, you know, central nervous system firing, you know, just muscle efficiency. I need to like stop the dragster and bring out the show car, you know, which are two different types. That's how I explain the training is, you know, a power lifter or a strong man is kind of like a dragster. You want everything to fire at one time.
Everything.
Where, you know, a bodybuilder, you want a show car. You want to be able to open the hood and be able to see all the parts of the engine look really, really good.
Sure.
Well, if you were to make a dragster into a show car, you need to take it in the shop, pull every fucking piece of that engine apart, clean it, you know, rebuild it.
Yeah.
So it looks really, really good.
Did you enjoy that process? Your face is awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I like the leg stuff, the back stuff. Yes. Arm stuff. No.
Yeah.
You know, like arm training. I just,
I've
never been an arm guy. You know, it's just
not at all.
It's always been strength oriented to me. It was, I mean, it's not that I hate arms. It's just, to me, having an arm day was just so fucking dumb. It's like, why bother? Like, I'm going to go out there for 15 minutes. It's like stupid as fuck. And, but I did, you know what I'm saying? It's because I wanted to see what the result was going to be. So those are the harder days to kind of get through.
Well, you have to buy in.
And they're so easy, you know, to do a lot of those, even if it's a circuit or a strip set, it's just biceps. I mean, it's going to burn. Who cares?
Sure.
It's like leg extensions. It's going to burn. Who cares? You know, that's not the same challenge as trying to do, you know, 30 reps on a leg press with a weight you think you might be able to do for 5.
Right.
You know, that's a whole nother fucking world.
Right.
Or standing up with something you've never stood up with before on a squat. That's, to me, that's everything. You know, that's
absolutely the high from that it's almost like, you know, like when you miss something, you're obviously upset that you missed it, and it's almost like angry, but you almost have like energy that didn't get expended. You know, like if you go to a squat and like you get like, well, let's not use squat, let's say bench press, right? You get like 3/4 up on the way of bench press, and you don't get to like have that finish, like some of that anger that like people see, or like intensity. It's just that you're like, I still have more that didn't come out. It was supposed to come out. I was supposed to feel good right now. It's not there, you know? Like, and
but the one thing I will say is when I did transition from, you know, still trying to train like a power lifter into training like a bodybuilder, my first transition was, you know, it was working with Justin, so it was using something that was more of a DC model, which fit me very well because before Westside, I was all linear periodization, some block periodization, and I did have a lot of hypertrophy phases, which used HIIT training. Because of time, and because I enjoyed it, because it was hard. In
a different way.
And then the training density was very high, you know, for a short period of time, and I had better progress. You know, now John Meadow, you know, the high volume work with John, that works very well for me as well, but I never went that high a volume before in my life. So it was really high volume. So there's that middle ground didn't really work well for me. What I did though is I made sure I did no exercise that I knew how strong I would be at. So it's like, I'm not fucking floor pressing. All right. It's like no floor presses, no bench presses. You know, anything I know, I have to like, okay, we're going to do fucking machine presses, then we're going to put a band on it, and then maybe a chain, because I have no idea if this is even good. Like, I want to do movements. I don't even know if this is good or not.
Keep your ego out so that I
don't get frustrated. I don't get mad.
That's so smart.
And so I still do that even today. So a lot of the exercises that I picked to max out on, I have no idea. Like my recent thing's been the reverse band spider bar that I've been using. And once I, fulfill my goal on that, or objective on that, I don't like the word goal. Once I fill my objective on that, then I'll find something else that I have no idea if it's good or not.
Right.
Now, sometimes, and I know what's going to happen, one of these times Joe Sullivan or, one of my stronger guys out here, Ted Tolson's, going to take what I just did for a single and bust it a nut on and get underneath it and do it for 10 and let me know exactly how fucking weak I really am.
Yeah.
But until that happens, I'm still going to have fun because I have no idea. I know it's heavy as fuck to me, but I don't know if it's good. You know, I don't know if this is heavy to other people or not. No idea.
But it's so much fun when you don't have those expectations because
I can't compare myself to what I used to do.
Right. Yeah. Now, when you like, I don't know how you are, but like, if I had a big something coming up, it's on my mind days, weeks. Like I know it's coming, right? Like, and like the day of, especially, like there's anxiety about like, I hope this goes, I hope it's there, I hope like whatever. So like the workout would have like a certain level of like anxiety, like beforehand, like, oh man, I'm like a different type of like energy. When you were doing your bodybuilding stuff and it was just like, this is going to hurt really bad, was the energy just different?
Yeah, I never had that type of situation. I never felt like...
So like the burning intensity never got bad enough where you really were like, oh...
I mean, there were sets that I didn't know if I was going to be able to do. So that filled that little void that I talk about.
Like whatever.
It's like, man, I don't know, but it usually was lower body work. But, to speak about what you're talking about is I had a objective for the spider bar, which I hit 4 weeks ago. I hit that objective and it went well. I mean, I didn't fall out of the groove. It was hard. It didn't move real fast. I'm like, okay, I hit it. It was a PR. It's a pretty decent PR. It was fucking hard. And then, Ted, one of my enablers, said, man, I think you can do, a bigger number.
More.
Yeah. And I'm like, man, I don't fucking know. And I think he may have even captured the whole conversation. I'm like, I don't know, man, because I didn't fuck anything up.
Right.
I mean, if I would have fell forward or fucked something up, I would agree with you. But this was really fucking hard.
It was clean.
It was really hard. And
it took what you had.
And then I went home in that fucking... Am I scared to fucking try more? I'm like, it's a boom, 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 boom.
Was that really all you had? Like,
fuck yeah, that whole night. I'm like, God damn it, I'm fucking scared to do this, and I'm not fucking scared to do. And it's just boom, here we go. I'm like, fuck it. I text him, I'm like,
spinning yourself up.
I'm like, doing it. Like 6 weeks, I'm doing it because every other week I go heavy. So Saturday, it's going to get done. So it's like this is how it's going to play out, and this is how it's going to happen. And each session since then, I'm getting nicked a little bit more because I know I'm overreaching,
of course,
because I already peaked, and this is trying to extend that peak. But so yes, since that day, actually 2 weeks before that lift was on my mind 24/7.
Yeah.
Now it's been 6 weeks that this lift, this other one has been on my mind 24/7, and it's always there.
Yeah.
It never shuts off.
No.
It just dims so I can get my work done and do other things, but it doesn't shut off.
It's like a meeting with destiny that you know is coming.
Now, when it's done, it will shut off.
Yep.
And then I won't put anything back in its place until the holidays are over.
Sure.
Because I'm coming into the busy season. I can't have anything back in its place. All right, which makes training very difficult to manage because there's no purpose.
Yes. And then it's hard to get in because you're like, what am I doing this for?
Yes. You know what I mean? It's really, really hard.
Did you find that during bodybuilding, or was like seeing a new vein in 2 weeks, was that motivating enough?
No, it was because the frequency was so high. Because the training there was so much training that every day was almost a training session. Where when you're training for strength, especially with what the stuff I'm doing now, I don't have a meet.
Right.
I don't have a day.
Sure.
All right. So if I'm not recovered, fuck it, I won't train this week.
Right. It's not there.
I'll just train once next week.
Right.
I train what's necessary to get the result, and then that's it.
Right.
So that reduces some of the anxiety, but it also makes it a little bit easier to accomplish the objective because there's not a day that I have to force, which is going to beat me up even worse.
Sure.
So that was something that, and there will be some other dumb objective that's going to come around.
Of course.
You know, in next year sometime. I don't know what that will be.
Something dumb.
You know, but it will be there. But then they're long term.
Sure.
Because the one that I hit 4 whatever weeks ago, that's been since February 2017. You know, that was established after I came out of surgery for my second hip.
Sure.
That's when that got set. So that was a 2-year thing. So it's going to take me some time to sit down and process on what's going to take 2 years.
Sure.
You know, and I'm not going to sit here and lie. You know, I'm looking at that, you know, chart of the weight loss, and that's 9 months. I mean, for me to take my weight down, you know, there's 2 ways to do it. You can either starve it down and put the muscle back on later, you know, which, you know, J.M. Blakely was classic for doing. Lose it all in a month, just put all the muscle back on in the next 2, or take it off slow.
Right.
So, I mean, that can be an option. So it's weird now because the position I'm in is the same position that most of the people who are reading the site live in and they train in, you know, and it's a weird position to be in because I'm still that guy that wants to set, you know.
Sure.
You know, if I could still compete, I would.
Right.
You know, but I wouldn't.
You wish that squat bar was still in your back. You wish.
Yes, but I wouldn't have a business, and I probably wouldn't be married. You know, I can say that with a fact. What else you got?
All right, guys, we're nearing the 3-hour mark.
Mm-hmm.
We do have another one. Oh, Brian, you got something?
I was just gonna, real fast before we move on from that topic. What did you find more mentally like hard, like powerlifting or the bodybuilding stuff? Like, I guess that's a really bad question, but like they're different, right? Like it's a different type of mentality going into your workouts. It's a different type of mentality during your workouts. I'm sure it's not. I mean, sure you probably have to get up for like a larger set in a bodybuilding workout, but it's not like a 1 rep max.
Neither one of them were mentally that hard for me because I made a decision to do it. And if I decide to do something, that means I'm taking action and we'll find a way to get it done. So the mental part is just part of the process that I'm used to.
Sure.
What would be mentally hard for me would be probably doing like one of your workouts because I wouldn't like that type of training.
It's just different. Right.
So that would be mentally hard because that wouldn't be something I would decide to do.
Right.
All right. But now if I decided to do that, it's like I'm going to train this way for 12 weeks.
You buy
it wouldn't be mentally hard. It would be physically hard.
Sure.
But it wouldn't be mentally hard because there are a lot harder things to deal with mentally in life than fucking training.
I agree.
So I don't allow that to occupy
Sure.
that much mental capacity for that.
It's a good tip.
I get frustrated the same way other people do. I hate missing stuff. You know, I'll get pissed, but I let it go pretty quick. You know, and it's, I learned that when you compete for 20 years, you kind of learn, you know, that there's certain things you can carry, certain things you can't.
Right.
You know, you can't carry, stress is still cortisol, you know, stress is still recovery. You know, recovery is the most important thing. So the last thing I should be stressed about is something that is actually a luxury in our, you know, in most people's lives to even be able to do.
Completely agree.
You know, so I can't get myself stressed. Now, I don't stress about, you know, I want to get this thing over with Saturday, but I'm not like freaking out mentally stressed about it. You know, I'll sleep fine. You know, now tomorrow my mind's going to be different.
Yeah, sure,
you know,
of course.
It's going to be, you know.
But when it rears its head, do you just get like that kind of like rise in like anxiety for a second, and you're like, that's coming up. That's a thing that I need to meet.
No,
that doesn't even rise in you.
No, I do. I'll walk in the gym in a different state, so it will be slightly higher than what it would normally be, but not so much higher that it's going to burn me out.
Sure.
I need to be able to flick that switch 30 seconds before.
Sure.
And that's it. Because it's a big fucking switch that I flip that usually ends with me puking in a bucket.
Sure.
And it's not because of the physical exertion. It's the mental exertion that's going into that lift. It's kind of like, you know, it's a real fucked up way to think about it is I'm summoning all the demons inside of me to be able to lift this thing. And then when it's done, they all have to come out one way or another, and they come out in a bucket.
Yeah.
You know, and but I got to be careful with that because, you know, it's the bigger the weight gets, you got to increase your mental arousal a little bit with each one. Otherwise, the lighter ones start taking too much mental capacity or start to feel too heavy.
Yeah.
But the more I can leave for that 15 seconds or whatever it's going to take, 30 seconds, 2 minutes, whatever, for that final push before that, I need all of it.
Sure.
So a lot of times I'll be more quiet. You know, I won't be fucking around as much in the gym. I won't be purposely trying to piss other people off in the gym. Like the ones I have some I train with, I purposely try to piss off, you know, to get them where they need to be.
Sure.
You know, a lot of that won't typically happen the way it normally
You'll be a little
happen.
bit more internally.
It's all internally focused on that, but it's not, you know, it's not like I'm listening to fucking Pantera on my way to the gym or anything like that, or even just it's a normal day. Going to do what needs to be done, and as long as I approach it that way, the success is higher. If I let all that stuff hit me beforehand, I mentally burn out my adrenal glands.
Sure. And
then when I need those to turn on at a higher, you know, rate than I've had for a long time, it's not there. Sure. Because I was fucking banging my head to Pantera driving to the gym. Right. You know, come on, it's dumb. Right. You know, and
it's not very efficient.
No, it's terrible. And it's, you know, it's why I try to avoid pre-workouts and all that other kind of shit. I try to avoid all that because mentally I'll be there. Yes. You know, I don't need anything that's going to throw me over the top.
Yep.
You know.
Now, as far as like, because I will get anxiety, like timeout, my whole life, like if I was coming up on like a jiu-jitsu competition or like a fight or like a big lift or something, like in my head when it would come out like a couple weeks, I'm just like, or competition even for strongman, like I know powerlifters tend to compete more, which competing definitely helps, like the nurse, but like I'll think about it and I'm like, and it'll just pass. But like when it comes to the forefront, I'm kind of an anxious guy anyway, but like it'll rise and it'll fall. Were you ever like that before? Have you always kind of been like
when I was in high school, I went through a flotation tank visualization and mental. I was part of a research project. It was from the University of Toledo. And so I was taught how to visualize. Sure. And it was for sports psychology department that was up there and using the flotation tanks for that. So probably before that, but after that, you know, there was a time where I was visualizing every training session at least 2 or 3 times before doing it. Then I realized I really don't even need to do that because it's just training. Right. You know, there's no real reason to be able to do that. But if it was a meet or a max or say this lift thing that I want to do this weekend, I've already done this lift thing this weekend thousands of times in my head. You know, some of it with pure clarity, some of it just driving down the road thinking about it. Yep. So I don't have that anxiety because I've already done it.
Right. But even when you're thinking about beforehand, like going through it in your head, thinking about, because I'm sure the way I visualize at least, like a lot of times when I'm doing the clarity one, like I try to make it as real as possible. Like I feel the way that I know it's not going to be light. I'm not like thinking I'm going to blow through it. Like I go through the problems that could happen, like everything, like try to make it real. And when that happens, like I find like my heart rate's up, like I'll start sweating, like I get physiological responses from the visualization to include the anxiety, like the before set anxiety. But the visualization was able to help you kind of shut that down or at least squelch that a little bit?
Yeah, I would take the anxiety out.
How?
You know,
like
I'm in control of my mind if I'm in that mental state. You know, if I want butterflies to sit on the bar, I can make butterflies sit on the bar. Right? You're in that mental state. You're telling yourself, here's what's going to happen. You know, this is what it's going to feel like. My feet are going to be here. My feet are going to be here. Sure. My breathing's going to be here. My breathing's going to be here. Okay, why am I getting anxious? Right. Step away from the bar. Back up. Sit down. You're not ready yet. You see what I'm saying? So you can control that.
Gotcha.
You see what I'm saying? So
it's fascinating.
Yeah, what you're doing is you're controlling, you're going through the process, but you're not going through the pivot that obviously you can't do in a meet.
Yes.
But you can do when you're visualizing.
Sure.
All right. So you take it and you embrace it, right? So yes, you embrace it, but if you don't want it, you can always take it out.
Right.
Okay, let's stop, let's sit down. Anxiety's gone now. Let's get back up again. Let's get under the bar. Still need the heart rate elevated, but we want it elevated without the anxiety.
Right.
No doubt.
Right.
No doubt. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You change your cueing, you change your mental checklist that you're going through, and then you get underneath it, fucking anxious. Okay, set back, set it down. You know, maybe you go through several sessions where you never
figure out why I'm anxious
Yeah.
instead of
several sessions you may never squat the bar.
right.
But if you can get underneath it one time mentally and everything's rock solid, right? And it's right before you stand up, anxiety hits. Compared to the anxiety hitting as you're walking up to the bar, huge progression from a mental standpoint from one visualization session.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Huge.
I wish we did 3 hours on this. Like I do. This is so fascinating to me. Like it really is. And hearing like how you go about it, like it's one thing to like read a book about like, sports performance and stuff, but to actually hear you and be able to be like, no, stop. Like, what do you mean? Like, that's fascinating.
That's the power of being able to visualization is you
Absolutely.
own it. Okay.
Yeah.
It's
See, I do a lot of visual, and I believe in it. I love it. But like to say that I don't get anxiety or I can control my emotions in my visualization, they definitely take me over. Like,
Yeah.
I definitely get nervous when I think about, you know what I mean?
you're not owning it.
No. I'm
Okay.
not. Yeah.
So let's take this back and let's say that you were a sniper.
Sure.
Okay. They can't have anxiety.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They may, special forces sniper may have to lay there for fucking 48 hours.
Sure.
They can't fucking have anxiety.
Right.
So that tells you a human can do it.
Absolutely.
Can do it for a long period of time, have no anxiety, still be on point, still hit the target
Yeah.
with no sleep for 2 days.
Sure.
So if he is able to do it,
Yeah.
now granted there's a maturation process to be able to get that person
Sure.
in that role, right?
Sure.
But they still have to mentally be able to put that together.
But the funny thing is, in my old job, like I wasn't a sniper, but like
Yeah.
performance on demand is what I do. You know what I
Yes.
mean? And in big situations, not like lifting situations. And I don't feel anxiety about that. None. You tell me like tomorrow you're going to squat 750. I'm like, I hope that goes well. You know what I mean?
You don't
Part
own
of it's
it.
because I'm not, I know that like my preparation isn't as good. Like my technique isn't as good because I slack on things because my business, if it comes down to like paying my bills or like do it right now in my life, that's more important. You know what I mean? And so I think part of it comes from that, like the lack of preparation. Like I don't
But
feel like I'm ready.
you can't have anxiety about a decision that you consciously made.
Because I chose not to prepare.
Yes.
Exactly.
Okay.
So,
You see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
that's punishing yourself for a decision that you made that was a conscious decision.
Sure.
All right. And if you're going to punish yourself, then don't make that decision. But you made that decision, so own it.
Sure.
So you think you're owning the decision, right? Because you are abiding by certain rules of that decision.
Sure.
You are taking care of the business. You're doing this, you're
Yep,
doing
yep,
this,
yep.
you're doing that. But you're not owning the decision
Sure.
by taking care of the anxiety that's being created because you made this decision.
Right. Same way that you said after this squat, you're off because you have bigger things coming up that need that attention.
Yes.
You can't get it.
And I'm not saying it's going to be easy,
Sure.
but that's part of owning it. You can't own just 3/4 of the decision.
Sure.
You got to own all of it, just like we talked about before. If you're,
Absolutely.
an owner of a company or a president
Absolutely.
of a company, the buck falls with you.
And everything
So-
costs something. So maybe I have a little bit too much on my plate and I'm not fully buying into that thing. And that's why I have the anxiety.
Yes.
And maybe I need to be like, take some step back from something else and be like, if you care about it, to give it what it deserves.
It could be. I mean, we're using the word anxiety loosely here.
Sure.
You know, it's also a medical condition. So
Sure.
we, you know,
Yeah.
You know,
well, I have medical anxiety, so
that could be a situation there where
Sure.
a Xanax
Yep.
would be
But
the answer.
I just love hearing like how your mind goes about it,
Yeah.
so that I can be like, hey, let me try to apply some of those things and see if they work for me. If they do, great. If they don't, I
Yeah.
tried.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So like, I love like learning how your brain works, or like any high elite performer's brain works. Like I'm all ears, because I'm like, there's got to be something, like whether I'm a checkers player or a lifter or a race car driver, learning how your brain goes into a big lift is going to directly affect, those principles will directly affect whatever I'm trying to be a great performer at. You know what I mean? So that's why I'm always like, I'm like, whoa, I need to know more about this.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. What do you
All
have?
right, guys, we only got like 5 minutes left, so we'll try to kind of rip through these in a rapid fire format.
Yeah, that's fine.
This one has been asked a couple times, so we'll knock this one out quick. But how would you program for a firefighter that works a schedule of 48 hours straight on duty and then 96 hours straight off duty
That's all
to the
you.
best of your ability?
I would actually probably end up, so how many hours on, how many hours off?
48 on, 96 off. So I think that's what, 2 days on, 4 days off?
Yeah, I mean, I probably fit at least one training session in when you're doing your firefighting stuff, and then the rest of the time, I don't personally, I don't think that's that bad of a schedule. I know people are probably going to hate me now, but like my old schedule was horrible compared to that, and I was still able to get 4 times a week, every week, being in different countries, being in hotel gyms, doing stuff like that. So like, if you typically, if you're at a firehouse, you have access to some sort of weights at the firehouse. You can get something dumb done there. Might not be what you want, but you can get something done. And then you have 4 days off during the week. I haven't had 4 days off in years. Like you can get a lot done in 4 days. So I would highly recommend, like we talked about giant sets a little bit. There's an entire other video that's going to come out about it, but training like an athlete that's not really specific for anything, but like being able to be strong, being able to carry things, being able to like throw things, the stuff that's going to require for your job, without forgetting the basics of like squat, deadlift, bench, and overhead press. You can't really go wrong, but make sure you're training your conditioning, because that's going to work your mindset. And something like firefighting, I'm sure you're going to run into different situations. It's going to kick your parasympathetic nervous system up. You're going to hit some like fight or flight situations where you're going to be absolutely exhausted for no other reason than you got like hyped up. And you're going to have to be able to train through that, because it's about performance on demand, not performance when you want to do it. So definitely work the conditioning and build that mental side, because it's going to end up mattering. And if you're going to save my mom, I want you to be able to do it. So, so work, you know what I mean?
Okay. This one I think you guys already touched upon, but see if this can be kind of a quick one if possible. So it's, what is the best way to deal with the crushing effect of long-term injury and illness? Just from like a 2 to 4 sentence answer each. Or if you guys think we already covered it. Just want to make sure I ask all of you.
Will you say that one more time?
Yeah, ask that again.
So what is the best way to deal with the crushing effect of long-term injury/illness?
I got one. One step at a time. You know, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. When you start over at 0. It's 1 pound at a time. It's 1 session at a time, 1 rep at a time, 1 set. When I was really dark with the sickness, and honestly, eating a bullet sounded a lot better than living tomorrow. It was about 1 second at a time, 1 thought at a time, 1 decision at a time. That's the only way things get done. It's so stupid to say like journey of 1,000 miles is 1 step, but that's literally how everything gets done. And no matter whether it's the biggest deal in the world or the smallest deal in the world, it's always about just taking the proper steps and making the correct decisions over and over again long enough until you get to where you want to be.
Yeah, I would say that's a good answer.
Okay, ding, ding, ding. How would you ease into weightlifting after breaking your foot? Broke my foot 4 weeks ago, and I will most likely be medically cleared in 2 weeks. Been doing upper body work for 3 times a week in the meantime.
Talk to your doctor.
Yeah.
No, that counts as an answer.
Yeah, I mean, that's a physical therapist, but I mean, there's some basic rules and guidelines that kind of fit all this. You know, if don't do what hurts. If something hurts, don't do it. I mean, this needs to be said because people don't fucking listen. So don't do what hurts. kind of that simple. And there are more things that you can do than you can't. All right.
Especially with a broken foot.
Yeah. So you need to reevaluate the type of training that you're going to do and the type of lifts that you're going to do, because everybody's got a certain mindset of training. And like, if I said, write down your exercises that you've done in the past 2 years, most people can't fill one page of a piece of paper. They'll get down halfway through and they're going to stop. So you're not right now with a question like that. What you're seeing are all the things that you can't do. You know, the squat, overhead press, things like that. What you're not looking for are the things that you can. So change your mindset to the things that you can do, that you know you can do safely, and then of course run it by your doctor. But I mean, if you're run through that checklist, you're going to find some things pretty easily. With
straps and specialty bars and everything else, man, there's no reason why you can't train with a broken foot.
Okay. Do you guys focus on getting potassium and sodium in the day? If so, how important are those in strength sports? Again, these are 2 to 4 sentences.
I don't eat food all day long because I can't hold it down. I drink as much as I can. A lot of my calories come from milk, and then late at night I pound as many calories as I possibly can until I wake up at 3 a.m. So my nutrition has absolutely no bearing on anyone's conversation.
I think when you're talking about, electrolytes, and you're talking about, vitamins and minerals that have a direct impact and directly affect the function of the heart, that if you're going to start supplementing those to any high degree whatsoever, you most definitely should have a conversation with your doctor, because you start fucking around with high doses of any of the things that are responsible for the way that your heart functions and works, it's probably not a great idea. I'm not telling you to not go slam, or drink a Gatorade and stuff like that, but there have been, recorded cases of people going into AFib because they slam up freezing cold Gatorade.
Yep.
And as dumb as it sounds, look it up. There are cases that people will say that was responsible for throwing them into AFib. Now that's slamming a very, very, very super cold Gatorade, but I know one person that has happened to, actually 2 that it's happened to. So I can't make a cause and correlation argument out of that, but we're talking about, we're not talking about vitamin C that you take too much of that and you're just going to shit your brains out. We're talking about things that.
Have you done that?
What, too much vitamin C?
Everyone's done that.
Yeah, everybody's done that at some point in time. Now, you take it through IV, you can take a huge dose. So.
When they made IV, like, gummy things tasty and, like, vitamin C tastes good, everyone did that.
Yeah.
True. All right. This will be quick. Brian, are you ever going to do an ebook?
Yes. Right now, someone is ghostwriting a random book for me, but that's not really what I'm interested in. I have done a decent amount of writing in my life. I really do want to write an ebook. I'm actually I have one kind of written, but it's something that I don't really know exactly how I feel about that anymore. So I kind of want to write a different one. And the biggest thing is deciding what that I want to cut out to fill that time of writing with. Because I'll write the same exact way that I lift. Like, it'll be a discipline thing. I'm like, from this time to this time, I will sit down and write, or else I won't get it done. There's never going to be a good time. There's never going to be a convenient thing. So I just need to look at it and go, I don't want this in my life anymore, and I want to replace that with an ebook, and that's what I'm going to do. But I'm super, super excited to kind of look at some of those options.
Okay. Best grip work exercises and practices? If you guys want to each answer that real quick.
Was that grip?
Yeah, grip work. Exercises, practices.
That's a long
one. I'll keep it specific to just powerlifting and say the things that are going to help powerlifters
into the mic there, Dave.
Yeah, the things that are going to help powerlifters more so than anything else. And again, I'm keeping this specific to powerlifters, are hex dumbbell holds Keep your fingers off the numbers, keep your fingers off the grooves. Just hold the dumbbells. For a power lifter, the grip is your fingers. It's actually your pinky finger is where all hell breaks loose. So your pinky finger breaks, you're fucked. That's where it all starts. So the stronger your pinky finger can be, the better it's going to be. So binder clips are something that Ed Cohn told me about many, many years ago. Just the black binder clips. If you can shut those with your fingers and your thumb, and if your hand's not so fat that you can touch your thumb to your pinky finger, then you're not going to be able to use a very strong binder clip. But to be able to strengthen that, because if you're using a reverse grip or alternate grip, that's the hand that's going to open. Is going to be the forward hand. That's what's going to open, and the first finger to open is going to be your pinky. And it's usually going to open because it's dragging up your leg, or it's going to open because it's the weakest of the fingers on the hand. So that's all I got for the powerlifters. It's pretty simple from that. Doing things like super, super heavy rack pulls and shit like that really aren't going to help your grip a whole hell of a lot like people think they will. I think if you're going to do those, you put straps on and you really overload, it can strengthen the shit out of your upper back, which is another story, but it's not going to really help the grip. Strongman is really where the grip comes in, so you can take it from there.
I will agree with everything you said, especially about the pinky. A lot of times as a strongman, you need to work your thumb a lot too, because a lot of people have a crush grip that they can hold onto a barbell, but if it gets a little bit wider, like an axle or something fatter, they don't have like a pinch grip. You know what I mean? Like a lobster pinch. And so working your thumb absolutely works there. Something like a farmer's carry is a huge thing that most people can do in their own gym, either with heavy dumbbells or a trap bar or something like that. They can get away with it. But I will say that you do need to work grip a number of different ways. Sometimes it needs to be super heavy. Sometimes it needs to be more like almost like hypertrophy work. And then sometimes it needs to be stupid endurance stuff where you're just kind of carrying something for a very long distance, or even something stupid like taking a newspaper, like you get free papers outside your door, take a newspaper, pull off one sheet, grab the corner, and just start crumpling it up with one hand. Get all the way down the bottom, squeeze as hard as possible, grab the next sheet with the other hand. Go through an entire newspaper, and you'd be shocked at what happens to your forearms. It's an old fighting thing. There's so much stuff that came from like turn of century, old school strongman that bent nails and did dumb things like that. Thomas Inch dumbbell, just ridiculous grip things, and that's no rocket science there.
You can dig in rice as well.
Yes, to work your extensor. Yeah. A lot of people get like golfer's elbow and elbow tendonitis. It's because you're gripping all the time, but you're never extending. So sometimes just doing a simple rice bucket or sand bucket can help a lot. Plus, it's like you're a Shaolin monk, which is pretty awesome.
Okay, this one came in for Brian. It's the adaptations for lifters with missing limbs, and how do you go about that?
That's definitely not a short answer. I have no background in it. I have no business doing it, but I have a lot of people that come to me and ask me to help. And what I am willing to do is, number one, not treat them special, right? Anyone who has any sort of disability, in air quotes, right? The disability, the biggest thing they want is just to be like everyone else. So when they come in, I treat them exactly the same thing, because I have people who walk in, they're too old, they're too fat, they have too much of this, they have too much of that. I'm like, you have cerebral palsy, I throw up 50 times a day, that person doesn't have legs, so what? We're all going to deal with it. Everyone sucks, we'll all get through it, right? And so literally, one of the first people, his name was Zabi Osa, and he came in and he did not have part of his arm, like it was like he was basically down to his elbow, and the other hand, he was born, it was kind of like he was kind of, it wasn't fully developed, right? And so I'd never worked with an adaptive person, and I walked in, shook his hand, realized I didn't have full hand in my hand. I was like, hey guys, go get warmed up. I'll be right with you when I got to take care of some paperwork. I turn around and my mind's spinning going, what the heck am I going to do? Like I'm not prepared for this, right? Someone says like, hey Brian, turn around, and I look and he's doing muscle ups on a bar that's like 10 foot high without a hand and on his elbow. And I'm like, okay, everything that I thought was possible just got blown away, right? And then it also made me like look at like a normal person and be like, okay, I was treating you with kid gloves heavily, right? Because like humans can do some amazing things if they have a good positive drive to do it, and like, you know. And so the adaptive stuff has taught me so much, but the biggest thing that I do with them is just like be willing to learn and fail and be like, hey man, I've never worked with anyone without legs. Like, but But if you're willing to trust me and we'll work it out, we'll figure it out. Like, we'll try different things. We're going to fail. I'm going to look stupid. You're going to look stupid, but we'll work it out. And that's led me to a guy who came second in worlds without any legs. Another guy who is like a competitive CrossFit athlete, opened his own gym in Spain. It's been a really cool opportunity, but really, like I said before, like, I'm not the greatest coach. I'm not the greatest lifter, but I kind of foster an environment that brings people better than me to it. And then I'm just lucky enough to kind of hang on for the ride, you know?
Yeah.
All right, Dave, I'm assuming you haven't trained anybody like that.
I think if you're in it long enough, everybody does. And the most important thing that he said is you need to look at what their abilities are, and not the disabilities. Again, going back to kind of what I said earlier, you can't look at what they can't do. You got to look at what they can.
Yep.
And that's always more extensive than you think it is. And they'll tell you if you ask. You know, if you just try to make this assumption like I'm smarter than what they are, and I know what they can do more than what they do, then you're falsely misleading yourself.
They've been dealing with it.
They've been dealing with it. And, you know, if you open that communication up to be able to work with them, there's a lot of stuff. They'll teach you more than you're going to teach them. 1,000%. I'll tell you that.
All right, we're just roll through the last couple ones here. What's the most impressive feat of strength each of you have achieved that personally was impressive to each of you?
I could go so many different ways with this.
That counts. Dave? No, I'm just kidding.
It's not strength related. I just leave it at that.
Yes,
you know?
well, feat of strength it says, but
all right, mine.
Let's define how. You know, let's.
Well, you got
that's how I
define
feel.
it.
That's how I feel.
You know, it's what's strong, right? Is strong 1,000-pound squat, or is strong somebody that's willing to do what they need to do to be able to save their marriage?
Right.
You know, what's strong? Is strong a 700-pound bench press, or, you know, a single mom trying to raise 4 kids, you know, working 3 jobs, you know, doing the best she can, putting the kids through college. What's strong? You know, because my definition of strong is going to be totally different than what somebody else's is.
Exactly.
Because it's not in the fucking weight room.
No.
All right. Even though that's where I've spent most of my life and lived most of my life, some of the weakest people I've ever met are some of those people that can lift the biggest weights. Some of the strongest people I've ever met couldn't lift the bar out of a rack.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything to add to that, Brian?
No.
Okay.
No, there's nothing to add to that.
All right. I'm going to butcher this here, Brian, but do you plan on competing for no G? I think it's like a jiu-jitsu thing.
Oh, no gi, GI?
That's, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, no gi is like you wrestle basically without the, like, you know, people look at like pajamas. That's called a gi. And so it's just more like submission wrestling. Mm-hmm. And yeah, absolutely. That'll always be part of my life. That's like breathing. It's just something I need to do.
Okay. Back to you, Brian. What is the average workout length for you?
Hour 15.
Okay.
Well, hour 15 of actual work. When I'm running around with my stupid camera, I hate recording my own workouts, but I'm not in a financial position to have someone record me. So hour 15 of actual work.
Okay. Do you think a person should have a certain baseline strength or conditioning before trying strongman? And they said trying strongman. They didn't even say competing. So
no, man. I think people have a misconception of what like strongman is. It's kind of like, does someone need to be a certain strength before they do powerlifting? You're like, no. Like, you picked up a bar, you just did powerlifting. Congratulations. You know what I mean? And I feel same way about strongman. I think if you're going to compete in strongman, you need a little bit more depth than you do in powerlifting because you have more weight classes and you can start out with a very low total in powerlifting and that's your total. In strongman, they're like, hey, man, we're going to set the weight at 650 pounds and you need to do it 10 times in a minute at 220 pounds. And that's unreasonable for a certain amount of the population until they have a certain amount of training. So competing in strongman is much different than just trying out strongman. But I think everyone should try strongman.
Okay. What sets and reps would you do for Atlas Stone in a typical workout?
Depends what I was working. That's like what reps and sets do you on deadlift.
And then it says also what other exercises do you do on those days? Shoulders, back, legs.
Typically, if it's a stone, you're mainly hinging, right? So I do something where the main mover for the day was a hinge, so that it didn't negatively affect any of my main lifts. Because even though I am a strongman, all strongmen are still powerlifters, right? Because you still work the squat, the bench, and the deadlift. We work the overhead press, but you still need to do those things. And it still matters to me. Like having a deadlift PR still absolutely matters to me. A squat PR means a lot to me, and a stone PR really doesn't. You're hardly ever going to need a stone PR in a competition. It's always going to be about reps or something like that. So, I try to keep movements relatively similar when I can. So like a hinge would be on a hinge day.
Okay. The one we'll end on here is what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind? It's kind of a deeper one.
You've got the whole live, learn, pass on thing, right? Was that?
Yeah, but I've answered this before, so I'll answer it again. I don't care what kind of legacy I leave behind. And the reason I say that and the reason I explained this before is going to be the same thing as before. If you've ever been to a funeral and you're going to notice there's different layers of people, right? There's a few people that are up by the coffin who are devastated, right? And then there's a couple people back, all right? So like front row chairs. Let's just forget the funeral. Let's just say a wake.
Sure.
All right. That's a better example.
Yeah.
So the wake. So they're sitting there and they're basically there, first remove family members, stuff like that. All right. And then you get back a little bit further and you got the people that are there to show their respects, but really they just want to, they're like, well, how long do you think
they gotta be there?
Yeah. How long do I need to be here?
Sure.
When do I need to go? And then there's all those people that never came, okay, right, that were not there. So now let's think about that for a minute. Do I want to spend my life having the greatest impact on the people that are not going to be there? Do I want to spend my life having the greatest impact on the people that are going to be worried too much about when can I leave and where are we going to go to dinner? Or do I want to spend my life worrying about the greatest impact that I'm going to have on the people who are standing over me in the coffin? All right. I want the people that are standing over me in the coffin to know who I was, what difference I could make for them, what I did for them, and what, I was able to provide for them and how I was able to make them feel. In other words, my family. That's what I care about. All right, so that trumps any legacy, any day, any time, because they deserve nothing less than all I can give. You see what I'm saying? That's Absolutely. Not saying that all these other people aren't important and that I fully believe in giving back and helping, and, there's nobody that's going to debate that concept in any way whatsoever. Do I want to be remembered for that? I don't care. I don't care. What I care about is how those people who are going to be at the front of the coffin, how they think of me when I'm gone. And that's what I care about. That's the stuff that keeps me up at night. That's the stuff that concerns me. So legacy, nah. I'm more worried about being the best father and husband I can possibly be.
Legacy of its own, right?
In a way.
Absolutely. So my answer of being Instagram famous just isn't the same level as that. No. I honestly can't say anything better than what you just said, man. Like that was awesome. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, that was great, man.
I mean, too many people get so wrapped up in what other people think and 100%. What they're doing to try to make other people think certain ways and how they're viewed from other people. And I get that. I understand that, everybody wants to be an influencer or whatever you want to call that. And I don't want to bash them. I get it. I understand it. It's part of business and all that. But is that really what you want to be remembered for if you have a wife and kids?
Sure.
You know, fuck no. If it is, then, you know, maybe you need to rethink your priorities a little bit.
Sure.
You know, because that's not what's, you know, you got to look at what's really important. And
plus your wife and kids hopefully are going to be here in 10 years.
Well, get really sick.
Yeah.
Get really fucking sick and find out who's around.
Yeah, see how quick Instagram's hanging. See how quick you're following. See how quickly your friends.
Yes.
People didn't follow you from your personal training job. Like, how many people, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, loyalty is not a...
Well, yeah, I mean, you get sick to the point that you're humbled to the point you can't go to the bathroom by yourself.
Yeah.
Okay? You can't get in or out of the shower. You can't get in or out of bed.
Sure.
All right? Who's going to be help? You know, how in the world can I prioritize people I don't even fucking know over people that are going to be there until my end days?
Right.
You know, I can't justify that in any way whatsoever. You know, do I want to leave the world a better place for them? Yeah. For the rest of the world, I don't know how much I really care about that. And I hate to say that, but I'm just being fucking truthful here.
Right.
You know, hopefully, you know, what I do just, you know,
you put stuff out there, and what people do with it's up to them.
Yeah. I mean,
you put good stuff out, hopefully it lasts and people get help from it, whatever, but that's not.
Yeah. And this can be a lot of the reason why, you know, I don't really care what people say.
Right.
You know, if I have haters, I don't know if I have haters. I don't really care because I don't go looking for them.
Right.
You know, if I hear somebody said something and, you know, they're talking bullshit about me, I don't really care unless I know the person. Then if I know them, then I'll call them and usually find out it's bullshit.
Right.
You know, I don't get caught up in that bullshit.
Yeah.
You know, because it doesn't matter, because it all goes back to, you know, my wake.
Sure.
You know, and if I do start getting caught up in that narrative, you know, that false narrative, I take it right back to my wake.
Yeah.
I'm like, are these people really going to fucking matter?
That's like your perspective is take it back to the wake. Find that's your line in the sand.
Who really matters?
Absolutely.
You know, and then there it is. It's like, okay, this doesn't really matter. Yeah. This does not. First off, do I have control or do I not have control?
Right.
And then does it matter or does it not matter?
Sure.
You know, and then you kind of, you know, decipher it down from there. But legacy is the last fucking thing, because how many great people, I mean, people have made a huge difference in this world that has changed the world. Okay. Steve Jobs.
Sure.
Throw him out there. Give it 100 years. How many people are going to be talking about him?
Right.
How often do you hear him talked about now?
Right.
All right. So I'm not saying that he didn't make a difference in this world.
Right.
You know, he did, but I'll tell you the people that still fucking think about him every single day, and that would be
his family,
his immediate family.
Yeah.
You know, because if you've ever had a mother or father pass, not a day goes by that you don't think about them.
Sure.
You know, what do you want those thoughts to be?
Right.
And what are you doing to make those thoughts be what you want them to be?
Sure.
That's what matters.
We'll cut it there, guys. Thank you.
Probably my best piece is build the chest, the rest. This is an upper body business, like I said earlier, right? I love that. That pushes you a lot. You know, that's what they always say. Train with somebody that's stronger than you, because that's going to push you. Right? So I don't want to live a life where I have to count every calorie or something like that.
Yeah.
But I don't want to look like shit. I don't want to be a sloppy piece